Chapter 1104. Fight. Yi Xian did not expect that as soon as the plain-dressed woman left, these people would not be able to hold themselves back and attack. More importantly, he did not expect that Demon Yen would be the first to attack. At this moment, he suddenly understood something. Most of the time, friendship was built on powerful strength or a powerful background. That was the reality. Yi Xian shook his head and smiled. He did not regret letting the plain-dressed woman leave. On the contrary, there were no shackles on his heart. At this moment, a moose suddenly handed the prison pagoda to Yi Xian. Inside it were all his treasures. Yi Xian smiled. Having a sword is enough. As soon as he finished speaking, he charged into the sky with the executing heaven sword in hand. Second tier of the common sword. When he saw this scene, the Taoist in the distance immediately narrowed his eyes. She did not expect that Yi Xian had reached the second tier of the common sword. In her opinion, with Yi Xian's state of mind, he would need at least a few more years to reach the second tier of the common sword. Most importantly, she realized that Yi Xian had become somewhat different. Confidence. At the moment, Yi Xian was less cunning and more confident. In the sky, Demon Yen looked at Yi Xian. Second tier of the common sword. Yi Xian smiled. Yes. Demon Yen chuckled. That's beyond my expectations. Yi Xian suddenly laughed. If you want to fight, let's fight. What's with all the nonsense? As soon as he finished speaking, he suddenly disappeared. Hum. A sword's hum shook the heavens and earth. In the distance, Demon Yen narrowed her eyes. She pointed a finger forward and an illusory black finger suddenly appeared in the sky. In front of the black finger, a ray of sword light suddenly stopped. At this moment, Yi Xian stomped his right foot and stabbed forward with his sword. Boom! The black finger suddenly vanished, and then Demon Yen suddenly appeared in front of Yi Xian. She spun her right hand lightly, and then a black vortex appeared behind it as it smashed towards Yi Xian's chest. Yi Xian, on the other hand, didn't try to defend himself. Instead, he stabbed his sword at Demon Yan's throat, exchanging injuries for lives. However, when his sword was half an inch away from Demon Yan's throat, Demon Yan's left hand's two fingers clamped down on his executing heaven sword. However, her hand was directly imprinted on Yi Xian's chest. Boom! Yi Xian instantly retreated 1,000 feet, and as soon as he stopped, a trace of blood seeped out from the corner of his mouth. Not only that, but his entire body was enveloped by a black aura, and this black aura was currently corroding his indestructible golden body. In the distance, Demon Yen gazed at Yi Xian and smiled. I've lived for so many years, and I've fought thousands of times more battles than you. In terms of combat awareness, you're probably quite a bit inferior to me. As for your indestructible golden body, I've told you before that a physical body of this level is indeed rare, and it's difficult for an ordinary person to injure it. However, I'm no ordinary person. Right at this moment, Yi Xian suddenly vanished. Demon Yen suddenly raised her hand to block, and a ray of black light enveloped her arm. This block just happened to block a ray of sword light, and before Yi Xian could react, Demon Yan's fist had already smashed against his stomach. Bam! Yi Xian's entire body arched as he was sent flying. However, the moment he was sent flying, the executing heaven sword in his hand flew out and slashed at Demon Yan's head. However, the sword stopped half an inch away from her head, because two fingers on her left hand had directly caught the sword. However, at this moment, Yi Xian suddenly appeared in front of her. Demon Yen narrowed her eyes, and just as she was about to make a move, Yi Xian directly hugged her, and then slammed his head into her face. Bam! This time, Demon Yen did not defend herself and was directly slammed by Yi Xian. After the collision, Yi Xian did not stop. He used his hand as a sword and slashed at the back of Demon Yan's neck. However, before the sword finger could touch Demon Yan's skin, a powerful force suddenly sent him flying. This time, he was sent flying hundreds of feet. After Yi Xian stopped, he opened his right hand, and the executing heaven sword appeared in his hand. In the distance, Demon Yen stared at Yi Xian. To provoke me, you? Yi Xian suddenly disappeared on the spot. In the distance, a pair of wings suddenly appeared on Demon Yan's back. 10-winged demon wings. The moment the wings appeared, Yi Xian only felt his vision blur. Immediately after, he felt an aura of death. He instinctively crossed his arms in front of him to protect his head. Boom! A powerful force suddenly slammed into his arms. Bam! Yi Xian retreated frantically. At this moment, he felt another powerful force. Yi Xian stomped his right foot. Domain! Rumble! In front of Yi Xian, a shadow suddenly stopped. It was Demon Yen. Demon Yen looked at Yi Xian. Sword domain! Yi Xian suddenly wielded his sword with both hands and slashed down. Demon Yen suddenly disappeared on the spot, and Yi Xian's sword slashed through thin air. Yi Xian raised his head to look at Demon Yen. Demon Yen smirked. What a sword domain! After saying that, she opened her right palm. The next moment, in the distant sky, a huge black hand quietly appeared. The moment this hand appeared, the space in the field boiled. Rumble! Heaven and earth trembled. Below, Xiao Dao suddenly said softly, Demon's hand. Amu looked at Xiao Dao. Is it very powerful? Xiao Dao nodded. Powerful. Amu looked up at Yi Xian in the sky. Use the shield. Tai Chi shield. In the sky, Yi Xian looked at the demon's hand. His intuition told him that he couldn't handle this hand. Amu wanted him to use the Tai Chi shield. Humanity's #1 shield. Yi Xian suddenly smiled. No need. After saying that, he looked at the executing heaven sword in his right hand. My sword is enough. After saying that, he stomped his right foot and transformed into a sword beam that shot into the sky. Believe in the sword. Believe in yourself. In the distance, Demon Yan's right hand suddenly fell down. The demon's hand descended from the sky. In an instant, the entire sky turned illusory. At this moment, Yi Xian's sword stabbed into the demon's hand. Boom! The demon's hand trembled violently and countless cracks appeared. At this moment, Yi Xian suddenly roared and spun his sword. Rumble! The demon's hand exploded and turned into nothingness. After breaking the demon's hand, Yi Xian looked at Demon Yen in the distance. Demon Yen stared at Yi Xian. You're indeed different from before. Yi Xian looked at the executing heaven sword in his hand and said softly, I'm sorry. In the past, he relied too much on external objects. This was actually a lack of confidence in himself and the executing heaven sword. What a swordsman should rely on the most was the sword. Hearing Yi Xian's words, the executing heaven sword suddenly trembled and the sound of a sword vibrated. Below, Amu suddenly smiled. Yi Xian was indeed different from before. Confidence. The current Yi Xian was more like a swordsman. A powerful swordsman. Truly terrifying. Demon Yan's body suddenly rose into the air. At this moment, Yi Xian suddenly disappeared. He disappeared on the spot. The moment Yi Xian moved, Demon Yan also wanted to attack. However, at this moment, a mysterious force enveloped her. Sword domain. If not for the suppression of the sword domain, with Demon Yan's speed, she could totally beat him up. Therefore, when he fought with Demon Yan, he had to use the sword domain to suppress her. After the sword domain suppressed Demon Yan's speed, Yi Xian just happened to arrive in front of her and slashed at Demon Yan's head. Demon Yan was expressionless. The demonic wings behind her suddenly turned into rays of black light and slashed at Yi Xian. In an instant, Yi Xian was directly engulfed. Boom 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 boom. Explosions resounded incessantly in the sky. Below, Xiao Dao looked up at the sky and said softly, He's changed a lot. Amu smiled but did not say anything. Xiao Dao said calmly, However, if he continues to fight like this, he will be the one to lose. Amu shook her head. I don't think so. Xiao Dao looked at Amu. Amu said softly, Miss Xiao Dao, you can take a closer look. Xiao Dao looked up at Yi Xian in the sky. Soon, she frowned because she realized that Yi Xian was getting stronger as the battle went on. Xiao Dao said in a low voice, He has just broken through. Fighting can make him stronger. Amu nodded. Xiao Dao said softly, Now I understand why the plain-dressed woman left. In the sky, Yi Xian and Demon Yen were still fighting fiercely. However, Yi Xian was being suppressed. Although he was being suppressed, the situation was still optimistic. Not only that, but Yi Xian was getting stronger as the battle went on. About 15 minutes later, Yi Xian was careless in his fight with Demon Yen and was directly punched in the chest by Demon Yen. Bam! Yi Xian was instantly sent flying hundreds of feet away. Before he could stop, Demon Yen appeared in front of him again. In the next moment, Yi Xian retreated rapidly in the sky. This kick had pushed him back tens of thousands of feet. This time, Demon Yen didn't give Yi Xian a chance to catch his breath. Below, Amu's face darkened. This Demon Yan's battle awareness and ability were much stronger than Yi Xian's. However, this was normal. This Demon Yen was an ancient peak sovereign realm expert. Right at this moment, Yi Xian suddenly gave up on his defense and allowed the demon's fist to strike his chest. At this instant, Yi Xian wrapped his arms around the demon eye's arm, and then he suddenly pulled it towards himself. Boom! The two collided, and then both retreated madly. In the sky, after Demon Yen stopped, she looked at Yi Xian. At this moment, there was a cold murderous intent in her eyes. She didn't attack again because she knew that she couldn't kill Yi Xian in a short time. Moreover, Yi Xian was using her to practice. If this continued, Yi Xian would become stronger and stronger. Delay could lead to changes. At this thought, Demon Yen suddenly laughed. Yi Xian, you've successfully angered me. Originally, I only wanted to take the items, but now I want to kill. With that, she looked up at the sky. God Emperor, are you not going to make a move? After a moment of silence, a powerful aura suddenly appeared in the sky. God Emperor. The Divine Spirit Clan. These two originally hostile clans had now joined forces. God Emperor looked at Yi Xian. Little friend Yi, if you're willing to hand over those two god items, the Divine Spirit Clan will leave immediately. Moreover, you'll still be a friend of the Divine Spirit Clan. Yi Xian laughed. How can a friend steal a friend's things? I, Yi Xian, despise friends like you. With that, he pointed the executing heaven sword at God Emperor and Demon Yen. If you want the book room, come, kill me first. Chapter 1105. In the sky, God Emperor looked at Yi Xian in silence. He still had some misgivings. Although the plain-dressed woman had left, Yi Xian and Tendo still had some unclear relationship. The God Spirit Clan was also afraid of Tendo. As if knowing God Emperor's misgivings, Demon Yen smiled and said, "Are you afraid now?" The God Emperor looked at the demonic goose. The demonic goose softly said, "The fifth dimension tribulation that year was exchanged for the lives of the ancestors of our two races as well as countless other seniors. This time, who will bear it for us?" God Emperor was silent. Demon Yen said, "I also don't want to be tainted by his karma, but this is our only choice." After a long silence, God Emperor looked at Yi Xian below. "Since you want war, then let's fight." As soon as he said this, the sky behind him suddenly split open and countless God Spirit Clan experts flew out. At this moment, Amu suddenly walked to Yi Xian's side. "Do you want to fight by yourself or do you need my help?" Yi Xian rolled his eyes at Amu. What a joke! Although he had broken through to the second tier of the common sword, it was absolutely impossible for him to fight the entire God Spirit Clan and Demon Clan. Amu smiled and looked at Demon Yen and God Emperor in the sky. Demon Yen smiled and said, "High Priest, you won't let the Wu clan fall into war, right?" Amu smiled and said, "Why do you say so?" Demon Yen looked at Amu. "Because the Wu clan still has a mortal enemy, the Celestial clan." Amu blinked. "You are threatening me." Demon Yen smiled and said, "Our two clans have no enmity towards the Wu clan, but if High Priest insists on protecting Yi Xian, then we can only go to the Celestial clan to drink tea." Amu looked at Demon Yen. "You go and drink." After that, two black-robed elders with staffs in their hands suddenly appeared behind Amu. Behind the two black-robed elders were dozens of Wu clan experts. The Wu clan. Demon Yan's face darkened when he saw the Wu clan's powerhouses making a move. Originally, she was 80% sure that the Wu clan wouldn't help Yi Xian because the Wu clan had a powerful enemy. However, she did not expect that the Wu clan would make a move. God Emperor's face was also extremely gloomy. If the Wu clan made a move, it would be a big problem. Below, Amu looked at Demon Yen and said with a smile, "Guys, do you still want to fight?" Demon Yen looked at Amu. "Why?" Amu blinked. "Miss Yen. He is my shaman's servant." Demon Yen smiled and looked at God Emperor. "Let's go to the Celestials for some tea." After that, she turned and left. The God Emperor also left. After a while, the experts of the Divine Spirit race and the Fiend race also left. Below, Yi Xian looked at Amu. "I've implicated the Wu clan." Amu shook her head. You are my shaman's servant. How can you say I implicated you? Your business is my business. It is also the Wu clan's business. Yi Xian was about to speak when Amu suddenly said, Now, we have to think about two things. Yi Xian said in a low voice, The first is the Celestials. The second is Shen Gong. After saying that, he paused and said, There is also the third thing. Those hidden in the dark who want the study room. Amu nodded. Yes. Yi Xian said in a low voice. They may have joined forces. Amu smiled. Yes. Yi Xian blinked. Then won't I be in danger? Amu smiled mischievously. It seems so. Yi Xian turned to look at Xiao Dao. Miss Xiao Dao, I want to ask you something. Xiao Dao nodded. Speak. Yi Xian walked to Xiao Dao and said, There is the sixth dimension, right? Xiao Dao looked at Yi Xian. The place she went to is not a place you can go. Yi Xian asked, Why? Xiao Dao said calmly, There are no more than 5 people in the fifth dimension who can go to that place. She can go because she is really strong. As for you, your current strength is not enough to spy on that place. Do you understand? Yi Xian said in a low voice. Am I not strong enough? Xiao Dao looked at Yi Xian. Do you think you are strong enough? Yi Xian nodded. Xiao Dao shook her head. Who gave you such strong confidence? Yi Xian was speechless. Xiao Dao looked at the sky and said softly, Live well. After saying that, she turned and left. Yi Xian suddenly said, Xiao Dao, are you from the sixth dimension? Xiao Dao stopped in her tracks. You think too simply of this universe. You think too simply of me. After saying that, she disappeared. Yi Xian looked at Amu. Amu said softly, She is very mysterious. Yi Xian nodded. Let's not care about her. Just take care of ourselves. Amu looked at Yi Xian. What do you plan to do now? Yi Xian smiled. I don't like to sit around and wait for death. Amu blinked. What do you want to do? Yi Xian looked up at the sky. In his eyes, a trace of killing intent flashed. At this moment, the prison pagoda suddenly trembled. Yi Xian was stunned. The next moment, he was overjoyed. In the blink of an eye, he returned to the prison pagoda. Amu followed him into the prison pagoda. Yi Xian arrived at the 5th floor. Just as he arrived, a woman walked out. Yi Ling. Seeing Yi Xian, Yi Ling's lips curled up. Brother. Yi Xian walked in front of Yi Ling. You broke through. Yi Ling nodded. Yes, I did. As she spoke, she sized up Yi Xian. There was a trace of surprise in her eyes. You've become stronger. Yi Xian smiled. Yes, but I have not reached the rebirth state. Rebirth state. As he spoke, he suddenly thought of something. That was the tomb. As he spoke, he looked at Amu. Amu nodded. Later, we will go to the Wu clan. Then, I will let you go to the tomb. Yi Xian said in a low voice. If I enter the tomb, I'm afraid some people will not let it go. Amu nodded. That's true. But you have to go. Otherwise, it will be extremely difficult to reach the rebirth state. If you can reach the rebirth state, that demon Yen will not be able to suppress you. Yi Xian said. But I am a little worried. Amu said in a low voice. Just focus on your breakthrough. Leave the rest to me. Yi Ling suddenly looked at Amu. You are? Amu blinked. I am your brother's high priestess. He is my witch's servant. Yi Ling looked at Yi Xian. Witch's servant? Yi Xian smiled. This is the Wu clan's high priestess. Her name is Amu. Yi Ling nodded. Right at this time, Amu suddenly said, Actually, Miss Yi Ling can reach the ruler realm. Hearing this, Yi Xian turned to look at Amu. What do you mean? Amu looked at Yi Ling. Her foundation is too good. It is completely possible for her to reach the ruler realm. Yi Xian said in a low voice. Amu. She has just arrived at the rebirth state. Amu smiled. The ruler realm is not the same as the rebirth state. What the ruler realm needs is not comprehension, but resources. Moreover, in terms of experience, my Wu clan has experts who can teach her. Yi Xian frowned. Isn't it too much of a rush? Amu shook her head. If it were her alone, It would be too much of a rush. But if she has the help of my Wu clan's resources and experts, then there is no rush. Because her talent is excellent, even above yours. Moreover, her foundation is very good. She paused for a moment when she spoke up to this point, and then she said, the spirit energy in this era can't be compared to our era. It's much more difficult for the people of this era to cultivate. But it's exactly because of this that the foundation of the people of this era is much better than the people of our era. It can be said that there are many good seedlings in this era, and they lack resources and opportunities. Yi Xian looked at Yi Ling. Let's go to the Wu clan. Yi Ling cast a glance at Amu. Are you sure? Amu nodded. Sure. Yi Ling remained silent for a moment then said, all right. Amu said in a low voice, let's not waste time. Come with me to the Wu clan now. Yi Xian nodded. Just like that, Amu brought Yi Xian and his sister away from Fu Wenzong and went to the Wu clan. Once they entered the Wu clan, Amu suddenly said, have Uncle Zhang come to me. Soon, Uncle Zhang arrived before Amu. Amu looked at Uncle Zhang. Notify the 12 great shamans and 36 divine shaman generals. Have them come to Shaman City. As she spoke, she paused for a moment before continuing. Have all the powerful warriors of the Wu clan come to Shaman City. Uncle Zhang asked in a low voice. Girl, is something big going to happen? Amu smiled. It's nothing. It's just that 2 of my friends are about to reach a breakthrough, and I'm worried that someone will cause trouble. Uncle Zhang cast a glance at Yi Xian and his sister, then asked, them? Amu nodded. Uncle Zhang nodded slightly. Understood. Once he finished speaking, he turned around and left. Amu turned around and looked at Yi Xian. Come with me. Once she finished speaking, she brought Yi Xian and his sister to a dense forest in the city. Behind the forest, Amu said, release the grave. Yi Xian nodded. He swung his right hand, and the grave landed not too far away from the 3 of them. Amu looked at Yi Xian. Go in. Yi Xian said in a low voice. Amu, my instincts tell me that many people won't give up. Amu smiled. I can't guarantee anything, but I will do everything in the Wu clan to protect you. Yi Xian looked at Amu. After a long while, he looked at Yi Ling. Yi Ling smiled. I'll wait for you to come out. Yi Xian nodded, then turned around and walked into the grave. This was not the time to be sentimental. All he could do was walk out of the grave as soon as possible. Because he knew that the people in the dark would definitely not give up on this good opportunity to target him. Amu suddenly looked at Yi Ling. You can also go and break through now. I will arrange for you to enter the Wu clan's ancestral shrine. The souls of the Wu clan's ancestors will help you reach the ruler realm. Yi Ling looked at Amu. Why are you helping my brother and sister? Amu smiled. Because he is my wizard's attendant. Yi Ling looked at Amu, not saying a word. Amu smiled. Your brother trusts me very much. Yi Ling nodded. Then I trust you too. Saying that, she looked at the grave. I'll wait for my brother to come out first. Amu nodded slightly. She was about to speak when she suddenly frowned, and then she turned her head. Yi Ling asked, what's wrong? Amu said softly. I'm afraid that misfortune never comes alone. In the faraway graveyard, a grave suddenly loosened. Soon, a coffin floated out. There were many white runes on the coffin. After a while, the white runes disappeared. Then, a woman floated out of the coffin slowly. Almost at the same time, all the experts of the Celestials rushed over like crazy. P.S. Everyone hopes that the update will be at 7:30 or 8 o'clock sharp. Chapter 1106. The woman who floated out of the grave was dressed in snow-white clothes. She held a white staff in her hand and was barefooted. Not far from her were Hao Tian, Abu Zhan, Xing Zhantian, and the 8 groups of spiritual beings. And behind them were countless Tian clan experts. At this moment, almost all the awakened Celestials were here. The woman before them was the God Master of the Celestials. Seeing God Master, Hao Tian and the other 3 bowed slightly. The Celestials behind them all knelt on the ground. God Master slowly closed her eyes. After a long time, she opened them again. Is Amu awake? Hao Tian nodded. Yes. Much earlier than God Master. Hearing this, God Master narrowed her eyes. At this moment, Demon Yen and God Emperor suddenly appeared. Godmaster looked at them. Hao Tian quickly explained, these two are Demon Yen and God Emperor from the Demon Clan and the God Clan respectively. They are here to join forces with us to fight against the Wu Clan. Demon Yen smiled. Congratulations on your awakening, Godmaster. Godmaster suddenly said, what did Amu do after she woke up? Tell me the important things. Hao Tian said in a low voice, she took in a wizard servant. Godmaster frowned slightly. About half an hour later, Hao Tian told the priest everything that had happened during this time. In the field, Godmaster closed her eyes and pondered. Not daring to disturb her, Hao Tian and the others waited quietly. After a long time, Godmaster suddenly looked at Demon Yen. Your target is Yi Xian? Demon Yen nodded. We can join forces. Hao Tian suddenly said, we just received news that Yi Xian is in the midst of a breakthrough. If we want to make a move, this is our chance. Demon Yen smiled. It won't be difficult for the Demon Clan, the God Clan, and the Sky Clan to destroy the Wu Clan. The Divine Master softly said, you too, I have just woken up and my strength has yet to recover. My Tian Clan has the will to destroy the Wu Clan, but we are powerless. Demon Yen frowned slightly when she heard this. She naturally understood that this God-tier master was refusing her. Demon Yen looked at the priest. Why? The priest smiled. Send the guest off. Hao Tian wanted to say something but stopped. Demon Yen suddenly smiled and said, Divine Master, God Teacher looked at Hao Tian. What? My words don't matter anymore. Hearing this, Hao Tian's expression changed. He quickly looked at Demon Yen and God Emperor. Both of you, please. Demon Yen smiled. Okay. With that, she and God Emperor turned around and left. After the two of them left, Hao Tian looked at Divine Master. Divine Master, the priest said softly, our opponent is no longer the Wu Clan. Hao Tian was puzzled. Why? God Teacher looked at Hao Tian. In the past, our opponent was the Wu Clan. That was because only the Wu Clan could threaten us, and only they could threaten our interests. But now, the fifth dimension tribulation is coming. The biggest threat to us is the fifth dimension tribulation. At this time, we should look further. The fifth dimension tribulation. Hao Tian was silent. The God Teacher said, those two just now wanted the prophet's study. They didn't really want to help us destroy the Wu Clan. Moreover, they don't have the ability. Starting a war with the Wu Clan will only bring us harm. Xing Zhantian said, why don't we seize the study? God Teacher looked at Xing Zhantian. Why does the Tian clan need the protection of a study? Hearing this, everyone's blood boiled. Xing Zhantian laughed. God Teacher is right. Why does the Tian clan need the protection of a study? Protect. The pride of the Tian clan. Hao Tian hesitated then said, but that Yi Xian. He stole the divine items of the Tian clan and stewed the heavenly dragon. Yi Xian. The God Teacher slowly closed his eyes. You shouldn't have provoked this person. Hao Tian said in a deep voice, God Teacher, where did this person come from? The God Teacher said softly, I can't see through him. The 8 group of spiritual beings suddenly said, God Teacher, are we just going to let this go? That Yi Xian not only slaughtered the heavenly dragon clan, but he also stole the divine items of the other clans. Wait. The God Teacher looked at the 8 group of spiritual beings. Do you want the heavenly dragon clan to be exterminated? The 8 group of spiritual beings' expression changed. What do you mean, God Teacher? The God Teacher said softly, you already targeted him. What was the result? Hao Tian was silent. He was almost killed by a punch from that little girl. And that little girl wasn't even her real body. It could be said that if that little girl was her real body, it would be unimaginable. Apart from that little girl, there was also the woman in the plain dress behind Yi Xian. Although he didn't know where the woman in the plain dress had gone, he could tell that she wasn't simple. Even he couldn't see through her. This person's strength was definitely above his. And he still didn't know how many people were behind Yi Xian. The God Teacher suddenly said softly, we can't afford to provoke him. Hearing this, everyone's expression changed. They all looked at the God Teacher. The God Teacher said softly, you heard me right. We can't afford to provoke that person. We only have 2 choices. We can either befriend him or not provoke him. As she spoke, she glanced at the crowd. Not everyone can become that woman's witch servant. The 8 group of spiritual beings said in a deep voice, "Who is he?" Abzan also said in a deep voice, "God teacher, Yi Xian is indeed a mysterious person. What is his background?" After a long silence the God teacher said, "He has been to Buzhou Sacred Mountain, right?" Hao Tian nodded. Yes. The God teacher looked at everyone. Even the Tendo gave him face. What right do we have to mess with him? Everyone was speechless. After Demon Yen and God Emperor left the nothingness dimension, their expressions were a little ugly. They had thought that the Heavenly Clan would definitely join forces with them. After all, the Wu clan was the Heavenly Clan's mortal enemy. They didn't expect that the God teacher would reject them. Demon Yen suddenly said, "She has no reason to reject us, unless," God Emperor said softly, "unless she's afraid of something." Yi Xian. Demon Yen was silent. Now that she had calmed down, she felt a little regretful. Yi Xian was really too mysterious. Even the Tendo had to give him face. At this moment, a middle-aged man suddenly appeared in the field. The newcomer was none other than the godly craftsman. Shen Gong looked at Demon Yen and Demon Yen. "I'll join forces with you." Demon Yen looked at Shen Gong. "Your Excellency is from the Tendo era?" Shen Gong nodded. "Yes." Demon Yen said in a deep voice, "What's your purpose?" Shen Gong said calmly, "Don't worry. I don't want that study on him. I only want Yi Xian." Demon Yen frowned. "Only want him?" Shen Gong was expressionless. "Yes." Demon Yen smiled. "Yi Xian is breaking through now. It's the best time for us to kill him. However, the entire Wu clan is protecting him. With our strength, we can't kill him." Shen Gong said calmly, "I'm not the only one." Demon Yen narrowed his eyes. "There's more?" Shen Gong nodded. "Gather the experts of the Demon Clan and the God Clan." With that, he turned and left. God Emperor suddenly said, "Should we trust him?" Demon Yen said calmly, "If he's alone, we won't make a move. Everything depends on the situation." God Emperor nodded. Yes. Soon the two left. Tendo Pawn Shop. The one-legged woman suddenly floated into the pawn shop. Xiao Dao looked up at her. "What's the matter?" The one-legged woman said in a deep voice. "She's gone." Xiao Dao was silent. The one-legged woman said softly, "Is it a good thing or a bad thing?" Xiao Dao smiled. "What do you think?" The one-legged woman shook her head. "I don't know. That's why I'm asking you." Xiao Dao said softly, "It's a bad thing." The one-legged woman asked, "Why?" Xiao Dao said with a smile, "Because without her, the higher-ups won't care about this place. The other party angered her and forced her to leave this place. This is a conspiracy. However, the other party neglected one thing." The one-legged woman said in a deep voice, "Her strength." Xiao Dao nodded. "Her strength is different from what the higher-ups thought. The higher-ups have seriously underestimated her strength. Forcing her to go up is a huge disaster for them." The one-legged woman asked, "Isn't that a good thing?" Xiao Dao looked at the one-legged woman. "Who will block the fifth dimension tribulation?" The one-legged woman said in a deep voice, "Even if she is here, she might not block it." Xiao Dao shook his head. "The meaning of her existence isn't to block the fifth dimension tribulation, but to be the one after it. The fifth dimension tribulation will purify the world, but it won't completely destroy the universe. After the fifth dimension tribulation, there will be a huge one, which is the most terrifying." The one-legged woman said in a deep voice, "A lot of people will die in the fifth dimension tribulation, right?" Xiao Dao nodded. "Yes." The one-legged woman looked at Xiao Dao. "You know a lot, but you don't have any way to stop it?" Xiao Dao shook his head. "There's no way. No one can stop it. This is a sin created by the myriad of living beings. They will have to bear the consequences." As she said this, she looked at the one-legged woman. "This isn't a heavenly tribulation. It's a tribulation of the human heart. There is only one way to get rid of this tribulation, and that is to restore the universe to its original state. Everyone will no longer plunder, no longer cultivate, and no longer destroy. Let the universe recover. Only by doing so will the tribulation disappear." Hearing this, the one-legged woman's pupils shrank. At this moment, She understood what the fifth dimension tribulation was. Xiao Dao said, "But how difficult is it to accomplish this?" The prophet once wanted to accomplish this, but he discovered that it was as difficult as ascending to the heavens. Do you want to change the entire fifth dimension? Impossible. The plain-clothed woman can't either. What she can do is destroy this universe with a single sword strike. However, she can't change the people of this universe. As she said this, she slowly closed her eyes. The myriad of living beings live in this universe, but the myriad of living beings don't cherish this universe. And now, in order to survive, this universe wants to be destroyed. The myriad of living beings have no way to stop it, because the one that wants to destroy them is the universe they live in. Can they resist? How can they resist? Do they want to destroy the universe that everyone lives in? As she said this, she looked at the one-legged woman. The myriad of living beings have the ability to destroy this universe, but they don't have the ability to save it. In other words, they aren't willing. Just like you. Are you willing to give up your cultivation and return everything to this universe? The one-legged woman was silent. Xiao Dao put down the ancient book in his hand and softly said, "This universe doesn't owe anything to the myriad of living beings." Chapter 1107. The pawnshop suddenly fell silent. After a long while, the one-legged woman suddenly said, "Since we can't get rid of this disaster, why did the prophet do all this?" Xiao Dao looked at the one-legged woman. "Because he is working hard." The one-legged woman asked, "What does he want to do?" Xiao Dao said softly, "He has never thought about fighting against the fifth dimension disaster. He wants to be reborn from destruction." Hearing this, the one-legged woman's pupils shrank, filled with disbelief. Wu Clan. On this day, a woman in a white dress walked into Shaman City. No one stopped her. Just like that, the woman in white came to a dense forest. There, she saw a Mu and Yiling. A Mu looked at the woman in white. "A Qian, long time no see." The woman called a Qian was a god-tier master. A Qian looked at the grave in the distance and smiled. "Reincarnation." A Mu nodded. A Qian said softly, "You were one step faster than me." A Mu smiled. "After I came out, I realized that this world is different from what we thought it was." A Qian scanned the surroundings. "It's indeed different." A Mu blinked. "What do you think?" A Qian looked at a Mu. "What can I think?" A Mu smiled. "Looks like we have the same idea." A Qian stared at a Mu. "What level has that woman reached?" A Mu shook his head. "I don't know." A Qian frowned. "You don't know either?" A Mu nodded. "I don't know." A Qian said softly, "Why does such a person exist in this era?" A Mu smiled. "She has already left." A Qian narrowed his eyes. "Sixth dimension?" A Mu nodded. "It should be." Sixth dimension. The two women were silent. They actually did not understand the legendary sixth dimension at all. In the entire Fiend God era, no one was able to pry into the sixth dimension. A Qian remained silent for a long time before he turned around and left. A Mu suddenly said, "Sis, I need your help." A Qian did not even turn his head. "It depends on my mood." With that, she disappeared into the horizon. A Mu smiled. Yiling suddenly asked, "Will she help?" A Mu nodded. "Yes." Of course, deep down, she wants to destroy the Wu clan, but she will choose to help. Yiling asked, "Why?" A Mu softly said, "Because she knows that only the Wu clan and the Tian clan can join hands to resist the fifth dimension tribulation. Just like back then, if our two races couldn't come to an agreement, no one would dare to sleep." Yiling asked, "Why can't you sleep now?" A Mu shook his head. "Sleeping once has already used up all the resources of our two races. We don't have the ability to let all of our clansmen fall into a deep sleep again." With that, she looked up at the horizon and softly said, "This time, we can only fight it head-on." A Qian left the nothingness dimension and came to the Tendo pawnshop. Inside the pawnshop, Xiao Dao looked up at a Qian and smiled. "A divine master of the Tian clan." A Qian softly said, "Miss Xiao Dao as well." Xiao Dao smiled. "What's the matter?" A Qian nodded. "I have a few questions I want to ask." Xiao Dao nodded. "Speak." A Qian looked at Xiao Dao. "Miss Xiao Dao, do you come from the sixth dimension?" Xiao Dao shook her head. "I refuse to answer this question." After a long silence, a Qian asked again, Miss Xiao Dao, does the prophet also come from the sixth dimension? Xiao Dao was silent. A Qian looked at Xiao Dao. Can't you tell me? Xiao Dao shook her head. His identity is very special. I don't know how to tell you. I also advise you not to think about his identity. It is not something you can touch. A Qian suddenly asked, What about Yi Xian? Xiao Dao was silent for a moment and softly said, You have chosen not to be his enemy. Am I right? A Qian smiled. I'm not completely sure yet. As far as I know, he has a lot of enemies now. And his biggest backer seems to have left this world. Xiao Dao looked at a Qian. You will not choose to be his enemy. The reason why you said this is because you want me to reveal more information about him. A Qian smiled. Excuse me. Xiao Dao calmly said, Everyone knows that the plain-dressed woman has left. However, do you think that he only has that plain-dressed woman behind him? Hearing this, a Qian narrowed his eyes. Who else is there? Xiao Dao looked at a Qian. I don't want to talk about this second generation. It's annoying. A Qian. Xiao Dao suddenly stood up. Let me tell you. That study room is actually very useful. A Qian looked at Xiao Dao. How useful? Xiao Dao smiled. It can really protect your celestial race from the fifth dimension tribulation. A Qian smiled. Miss Xiao Dao wants me to be his enemy? Xiao Dao shook her head. I want to tell you that whoever takes away the study room will die. Saying this, she stared at Xiao Dao. Other than this second generation, no one can defend that study room. A Qian narrowed his eyes. The study room comes from the sixth dimension. Xiao Dao laughed. You guessed it right a little. Saying this, she stood up and left. In the pawn shop, a Qian did not speak for a long time. Nothingness dimension. After Yi Xian entered the tomb, he immediately felt the aura of death. Death. Reincarnation? At this moment, Yi Xian suddenly understood. Gradually, Yi Xian lay in the tomb. What is reincarnation? In the tomb, Yi Xian pondered and comprehended. Outside the tomb, Yi Ling sat quietly. She just looked at the tomb. A man walked to Yi Ling's side and smiled. It's okay. Don't worry too much. Yi Ling looked at Amu. Thank you for helping my brother. Amu shook his head. You're being too polite. Just as Yi Ling was about to say something, a powerful aura suddenly appeared in the distant sky. Following the appearance of this powerful aura, a middle-aged man appeared in the sky above Shaman City. The newcomer was none other than the godly craftsman. The moment Shengong appeared, his gaze fell on Yi Ling. He had already investigated Yi Xian. He realized that in Yi Xian's heart, Yi Ling was the most important. It could be said that as long as he caught Yi Ling, he could do whatever he wanted to Yi Xian. As the human king, once Yi Xian was under his control, he could obtain endless benefits. The moment Shengong appeared, Demon Yen and God Emperor appeared behind him. Besides these two, there was also an old man in black and a mysterious man with a bird's head. There were 2 balls of blood-red flames in the sleeves of the old man in black. As for the man with a bird's head, he held a pair of electric hammers that flashed with lightning. In the sky, Shengong looked at Amu. Little girl from the Wu clan, we have some ties with the ancestors of the Wu clan. We don't want to slaughter the Wu clan. This matter has nothing to do with the Wu clan. As long as you don't interfere, we will only take Yi Xian away. We won't hurt the Wu clan. Amu blinked. Aren't you afraid of the woman in the plain dress? The corners of Shengong's eyes twitched. The woman in the plain dress. As for that mysterious woman, he naturally did not forget her. Shengong suddenly sneered. The woman in the plain dress? If I hadn't been careless and underestimated my enemy that day, what could she have done to me? When have I, Shengong, ever been afraid of anyone? Amu blinked and then shook her head. In terms of shamelessness, you and he are evenly matched. Shengong said angrily, Little girl from the Wu clan, I'll give you one last chance. Send that Yi Xian over. Otherwise, today will be the day the Wu clan will be exterminated. Amu suddenly said softly, If you want to take him away, you can only do it over the dead bodies of the Wu clan. Shengong narrowed his eyes. Kill. As his voice fell, his right hand suddenly turned down. In an instant, countless streams of water appeared in the sky. The next moment, the streams of water suddenly transformed into 12 water dragons that were thousands of feet long. As Shen Gong waved his right hand, the 12 huge dragons swooped down from the sky. In an instant, the whole world trembled. Below, 2 old men in black suddenly appeared behind a moo. The next moment, the 2 old men in black rushed up to the sky. In an instant, countless black gas formed a huge net that drowned the water dragons. Rumble! Rumble! The entire sky suddenly started trembling violently. The 2 black-robed old men forcibly blocked the water dragons. Shen Gong's face turned dark. He took a step forward and a mysterious power suddenly enveloped the entire sky. Waters! The moment the waters appeared, the black gas from the 2 old men was instantly suppressed. Soon, the black gas was completely corroded by the 12 water dragons, and the 12 water dragons swooped down from the sky. If they landed, the entire shaman city would be destroyed. At that moment, a middle-aged man suddenly appeared in the sky. The person who came was the tribe leader of the Wu clan, Wu Shi. Wu Shi looked at the 12 water dragons with an expressionless face. He clenched his right hand into a fist and a powerful force gathered in his hand. After a moment of silence, he suddenly threw a punch towards the sky. When he threw his punch, a glare from his fist swept through the sky like the sun. Rumble! Right before everyone's eyes, that glare from his fist dispersed the 12 water dragons. At that moment, Wu Shi suddenly charged into the sky and threw a punch towards Shen Gong. A vicious glint flashed in Shen Gong's eyes as he stood in the sky. He suddenly turned into a ray of light and vanished on the spot. Hiss! A tearing sound suddenly resounded in the sky, and immediately after, a shocking explosion resounded. Rumble! The sky above Shaman City trembled violently. Wu Shi retreated thousands of feet, but once he stopped, he charged forward and tore through the air with his physical body. Shen Gong suddenly let out a furious roar in the distance, and an invisible pressure appeared in the sky. Waters! As the waters appeared, a powerful force suppressed the shaman servant. The shaman servant suddenly let out a furious roar from within the waters and threw a punch forward. Rumble! The waters trembled violently and Shen Gong's face instantly turned slightly pale. Shen Gong was shocked when he saw this. He turned his head to look at the old man in black robes and the others standing nearby. I'll hold him back. All of you attack. Don't hold back. Destroy the entire Wu clan. Once he finished speaking, he charged towards the shaman servant. The old man in black robes looked down from the sky in the distance. 2 balls of fire burned in his eyes. Since the Wu clan wants to be destroyed so badly, then I'll fulfill your wish. The moment he finished speaking, his body suddenly started burning. The temperature in the area instantly increased exponentially, and the space around him turned illusionary. The space here could not withstand the heat. Just as the old man in black robes was about to attack, a woman suddenly appeared before him. P.S. There have been a lot of typos lately. JJ is gone. Chapter 1108. The newcomer was the Wu clan's previous high priestess. Looking at the old man in black before her, the corners of the previous high priestess' mouth lifted slightly. Destroy my Wu clan? Who do you think you are? As soon as she finished speaking, she suddenly opened her palm. In the next moment, a black thunderbolt fell into her palm. In the blink of an eye, she charged towards the old man in black with a thunderbolt in her hand. Everywhere she passed, lightning flashed. In the distance, the old man in black's face suddenly turned ferocious. He pressed his hands forward, and a wave of flames swept out. In an instant, the entire sky turned into a sea of fire. Within the sea of fire, lightning flashed and shook the heavens and the earth. In the distance, the faces of Demon Yen and God Emperor darkened. Because they noticed that this woman was actually suppressing the old man in black. The Wu clan's experts had greatly exceeded their expectations. Demon Yen turned to look at the bird-headed expert in the distance. The latter suddenly leaped up and swooped down from the sky. Whoosh! In an instant, countless thunderbolts poured down from the sky. Countless thunderbolts descended as if to crush the earth. It was extremely terrifying. At this moment, 2 old men in black suddenly appeared in the sky above the Wu clan. The 2 old men in black held black staffs in their hands and quickly chanted. Gradually, countless black ancient characters appeared in the sky. These black ancient characters actually started to corrode the thunderbolts. Seeing that his thunderbolts were blocked, the Birdman suddenly roared furiously and waved the electric hammer in his hand wildly. Rumble, rumble, rumble. In the sky, countless thunderbolts suddenly appeared, and then poured down like a storm. In the distance, God Emperor suddenly said, "Should we make a move?" Demon Yen shook her head. The Wu clan hasn't used all their trump cards. If we make a move now, we'll suffer great losses. God Emperor asked. Wait. Demon Yen nodded. She glanced at Shen Gong in the distance. He definitely has more trump cards. Wait for him to use them. God Emperor said in a deep voice. These experts from the era of Tendo are extremely powerful. If we join forces with them, it'll be like asking a tiger for its skin. Demon Yen shook his head. We don't have any other choice. We can only seek victory in the midst of danger. The God Emperor was silent. Far below, Amu looked at the horizon, his face expressionless. Tendo era. Shen Gong was from the Tendo era. The Wu clan would not dare to be careless when facing a powerhouse from the Tendo era. That was an era even earlier than the Wu clan. At this moment, Wu Shi in the sky was suddenly pushed back by Shen Gong. After Wu Shi was pushed back, Shen Gong did not attack again. He looked around and saw that his people were all blocked by the Wu clan. His expression suddenly became extremely ugly. Below, Amu suddenly pointed at Demon Yen in the distance. Old man Xueqi, you can let them do it. They've been watching the show. Hearing this, Shen Gong looked at Demon Eye and Demon Yen. Demon Yen narrowed his eyes. This high priest of the Wu clan was trying to sow discord. Shen Gong obviously knew this as well. He did not say much and turned to look at Amu below. I'll give you one last chance. Amu blinked. I'll think about it. Demon Yen suddenly said. She's stalling for time. Shen Gong looked at Amu. Since you want to die, I'll fulfill your wish. As his voice fell, he turned around and slashed lightly. The space split open. The next moment, a powerful aura suddenly spread out from the cracked space. Below, Amu narrowed his eyes. What kind of monster is this? Yiling walked to Amu's side. How long more until brother comes out? Amu said in a deep voice. It's still early. Yiling was silent. In the sky, black shadows suddenly floated out from the cracked space. These black shadows were shaped like ghosts. Their eyes were ferocious and extremely ugly, and they had a pair of wings. Below, Yiling asked, what are these? Amu looked at those monsters and frowned. I don't know. On the other side, Xiao Dao, who was in the dark, also frowned when she saw these monsters. This Shen Gong is too daring. He actually released these dark creatures imprisoned by the Tendo. Beside Xiao Dao, the one-legged woman asked, dark creatures. Xiao Dao nodded. During the Tendo era, there were some creatures that lived in the dark world. These creatures were also one of the creatures of this universe. They lived and died in darkness. They were naturally violent and extremely cruel. In the past, they almost destroyed the entire universe. In the end, the heavenly axiom appeared to suppress them and seal them in the dark world. Who would have thought that this godly craftsman would actually release these things? Does he really think that the Tendo is already dead? When he said this, he seemed to have thought of something and narrowed his eyes. No, he definitely doesn't have such guts. He must have something to rely on. The one-legged woman looked at Shen Gong in the distance. He definitely has a trump card. He's not afraid of the Tendo's trump card. Xiao Dao lifted her head to look at the depths of the galaxy and said softly, right after that woman left, countless monsters came out. The Wu clan is in danger. In Shaman City in the distance, Amu's expression also turned grave at that moment, because the sky above Shaman City was filled with those dark creatures. Their numbers were secondary. The main thing was that the presence of those dark creatures was incredibly strong. Very strong. The entire Shaman City was already dark, because the sky above Shaman City was filled with a dense amount of dark creatures. These dark creatures were roaring madly, and their voices were piercing to the ears and unpleasant to the ears. At that moment, Shen Gong suddenly let out a furious roar. Kill them! The moment his voice faded away, the dark creatures suddenly charged downwards. That charge was like a flood that broke a dam and could destroy the sky and earth. The expressions of the Wu clan and the other powerful warriors instantly turned incredibly grave. At that moment, Amu suddenly swung her right hand, and an ancient picture rushed into the sky. 8 trigrams. When the 8 trigrams appeared in the sky, it shuddered violently, and soon, a gigantic 8 trigrams rune covered the sky above Shaman City. At that moment, the dark creatures crashed into the 8 trigrams rune one after another. Boom, 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 boom. A series of densely packed explosions suddenly rang out between heaven and earth. The 8 trigrams rune had blocked it. However, the dark creatures crashed into the 8 trigrams rune one after another. The 8 trigrams rune might have stood firm, but Amu's face had turned slightly pale. The 8 trigrams rune could block them, but she could not. Because the 8 trigrams rune would use up her spiritual aura and mental power. In the sky, Demon Yen cast a glance at the dark creatures with an incredibly grave expression. She had not expected Shen Gong to have such a trump card. If these dark creatures went to the ancient battlefield, then even if the evil devil tribe and the divine spirit tribe worked together, they would not be able to stop them. It was too terrifying. At that moment, countless powerful warriors of the Wu clan suddenly appeared behind Amu. At that moment, all the powerful warriors of the Wu clan had gathered together. Amu's face turned even paler. She could not hold on for much longer. That kind of consumption was too great. Wu Shi cast a glance at Amu, then said, "All members of the Wu clan, listen up. Fight with me." The moment he finished speaking, he charged into the sky. Below, countless powerful warriors of the Wu clan charged into the sky. At that moment, Amu retracted the 8 trigrams rune. The moment the 8 trigrams rune disappeared, the dark creatures instantly charged towards the powerful warriors of the Wu clan below as if they had gone mad. When she saw this, Amu could not help but clench her fists. Because as soon as the battle began, the Wu clan was at a disadvantage. There were too many of them. Too many. Their numbers were at least 10 times that of the Wu clan. Moreover, countless dark creatures were charging out incessantly from within the pitch-black hole in space, and it seemed like there was no end to them. Moreover, not a single member of the Wu clan retreated. If this continued, then the Wu clan would definitely be exhausted to death. Right at this moment, the sound of space being torn apart resounded in the distant sky. Everyone in the surroundings turned their heads and looked over. 100 white-robed experts with sabers in their hands were charging swiftly towards them from afar, and there were a few thousand experts with spears in their hands behind these 100 white-robed experts. The undefeated army. Demon Yen suddenly roared furiously, "Attack!" As soon as she finished speaking, the space behind her and God Emperor suddenly split apart, and then countless demons and gods charged out from within the spatial rift. The demon army and the divine army. The experts of these two armies charged directly at the undefeated army. What they needed to do was to stop Arrow's people from helping the Wu clan. Because if this continued, the Wu clan would soon be defeated. Demon Yen looked into the distance and smiled. "Invincible Arrow, I heard that you were the best fighter in the Cambrian era. Why don't you come out and exchange a few blows?" Right at this moment, a sword ray suddenly appeared in front of Demon Yen. Demon Yen flipped her right hand, and a huge black hand swept out. Devil's hand. The sword ray arrived. Boom. Demon Yen instantly retreated several hundred feet. A petite girl stood where Demon Yen had been standing. The newcomer was Invincible Arrow. With the immortal sword in hand, Arrow looked at Demon Yen in the distance. "Who do you think you are?" As soon as she finished speaking, she suddenly drew her sword again. Hiss! A sword ray flashed across the battlefield. In the distant sky, Demon Yan's expression changed. The demon wings on her back suddenly flapped, and she turned into a black light and disappeared on the spot. At this moment, Arrow suddenly stabbed his sword to the right. Boom! Along with the sound of an explosion, a black figure instantly retreated a few hundred meters. It was Demon Yen. After Demon Yen stopped, her expression became solemn. She and Arrow were both rulers. She originally thought that her strength was on par with Arrow, but now it seemed that Arrow's combat strength was far above hers. Swordsman. Among those in the same realm, Swordsman was the strongest. Arrow looked at the distant Wu clan and frowned. If this continued, the Wu clan would suffer a crushing defeat. Just as Arrow was about to draw her sword, Demon Yen and God Emperor appeared in front of her. Demon Yen looked at Arrow. "Arrow, why do you want to get involved in this mess?" "You," Arrow suddenly said. "You talk too much." With that, she turned into a sword ray and flew out. Demon Yen narrowed her eyes. Let's work together to stop her. With that, she and God Emperor disappeared on the spot. Although the two of them worked together, they were still suppressed by Arrow. And completely suppressed. The two of them could only passively defend against Arrow. However, Arrow had no way to help. The people she brought were also blocked by the experts of the Demon Clan and God Clan. In the distant city, Amu's expression was incomparably gloomy. If this continued, the Wu clan would be completely annihilated. Because there were more and more dark beings. At this moment, a woman suddenly appeared in front of Amu. Amu's eyes flashed with surprise. You! Chapter 1109. The person who had come was none other than the mutated beast scripture. The mutated beast scripture that had always been at odds with Yi Xian. The mutated beast scripture looked at Amu and said calmly, "Do you need help?" Amu nodded. Yes. The mutated beast scripture looked up at the densely packed dark creatures. After a moment of silence, she suddenly roared, 10,000 beasts emerge! With that, she suddenly transformed into a huge teleportation array. In an instant, countless beasts rushed out of the teleportation array. Densely packed beasts. At this moment, all the beasts in the mutated beast scripture rushed out. With the addition of these beasts, the Wu clan powerhouses immediately felt much more at ease. Amu's expression also relaxed slightly, but it quickly became serious again. On the horizon, the one-legged woman beside Xiao Dao suddenly said softly, "Why did the mutated beast scripture make a move?" Xiao Dao said calmly, "She chose a side." The one-legged woman looked at Xiao Dao. "Yi Xian," Xiao Dao said with a smile. "Isn't that obvious?" As she spoke, she looked at the one-legged woman. "Aren't you choosing a side?" The one-legged woman fell silent. In the distance, with the addition of the beasts brought by the mutated beast scripture, the situation on the field changed a little. However, the dark creatures kept coming out. Gradually, the beasts and the Wu clan were suppressed again. Below, Amu looked at the horizon. She frowned. There were simply too many of these dark creatures. Where did they come from? At this moment, a woman appeared beside Amu. The person who had come was the Protoss Divine Master, Qian. Qian looked at the horizon. The next moment, powerful auras suddenly surged in from all directions. The Celestials had made their move. Soon, countless celestial powerhouses appeared on the field. As the celestial powerhouses made their move, the situation on the field was instantly reversed. Amu looked at Qian. "Thank you." Qian said nothing. She had three choices. Choose to stand with Shen Gong and destroy the Wu clan. It had to be said that this was very tempting, because now that the Wu clan was being besieged, if the Celestials joined Shen Gong, destroying the Wu clan wouldn't be too difficult. The second choice was to wait and see. They would let the Wu clan and Shen Gong suffer heavy losses, and the Tian clan would preserve their strength. The third option was to help the Wu clan. In the end, she chose to help the Wu clan. Helping the Wu clan was equivalent to helping Yi Xian. With the addition of the celestial race, although there were many dark beings, they were still suppressed. Seeing this scene, Shen Gong's face became extremely ugly. He didn't expect that so many people would come to help Yi Xian at this time. Shen Gong looked down and finally looked at the pitch-black space. The dark beings that almost destroyed the universe only have this much ability? After a moment of silence, the pitch-black space violently trembled. In the next moment, several black shadows rushed out from the side. These black shadows were shaped like demonic beasts. Their bodies were the size of small mountains and their bodies were pitch black. The moment they appeared in the sky, the entire sky above the Wu clan became illusory. At the same time, behind these black shadows, there were dozens of ghost-like afterimages. When these afterimages appeared, the experts from the Tian clan and the Witch clan immediately fell at an extremely fast speed. Seeing this scene, Qian frowned. She suddenly said, "Abzang." The moment her voice fell, Abzang suddenly appeared in front of Qian. Qian's face was incomparably pale. "Open the door to Hades." Abzang looked at Qian. "God teacher, are you serious?" Qian didn't say anything. Abzang didn't ask any more questions. He turned to look at the sky and clasped his hands together. A moment later, a blood-red door suddenly appeared in front of him. In the next moment, countless vengeful spirits and evil ghosts suddenly rushed out from the blood-red door. These were all evil ghosts imprisoned by Hades. These evil spirits rushed towards the dark specters in the sky in a frenzy. However, these evil spirits were no match for the dark specters. Before they could even get close to the dark specters, they were all slaughtered. At this moment, Hao Tian suddenly looked at Amu. High Priest, I'll borrow the Divine King's throne. Borrow. It had to be said that Hao Tian's heart was somewhat complicated at this moment. That was originally the celestial race's throne. Amu waved her right hand. I'll return it to you. With that, the Divine King's throne landed in front of Hao Tian. Hao Tian didn't waste any words. He directly sat on the Divine King's throne and closed his eyes. Then he suddenly roared, God Domain Suppression. Boom. As Hao Tian's voice fell, a powerful force suddenly enveloped the entire sky. God Domain. In this God Domain, the speed and battle prowess of the dark ghosts were instantly weakened. However, they were still very strong. Not only the dark ghosts, but also the dark giant spirits. These dark giant spirits were huge in size and had great destructive power. The Wu clan and the celestial race still didn't have any advantage. At this moment, Shen Gong suddenly roared, Still not enough. Just as his voice fell, a middle-aged man suddenly floated out from the pitch-black space behind him. The middle-aged man's body was very similar to a human's. However, his entire body was pitch black, and there were countless black gas lingering around his body. In the middle-aged man's hand, he held a black sickle. The middle-aged man glanced at Shen Gong. Shen Gong said fiercely, With just you? The middle-aged man said indifferently, I'm still rushing over. Shen Gong pointed at Yi Ling below, Capture that woman. As long as we capture her, we can make that Yi Xian surrender without bloodshed. The middle-aged man looked at Yi Ling below. In the next moment, he directly turned into a black light and disappeared. When he reappeared, he was already in front of Yi Ling. At this moment, a white light suddenly exploded in front of Yi Ling. The middle-aged man fiercely slashed forward with a sickle in his hand. Boom! The white light did not shatter. The middle-aged man explosively retreated hundreds of feet. In front of Yi Ling stood a woman. It was a Qian. Although Amu didn't know how to fight, but a Qian could. Moreover, she was the most capable of fighting in the celestial race. The middle-aged man sized up a Qian and said with a smile, It's actually a woman. A Qian was incomparably expressionless. What's wrong with a woman? As her voice fell, she suddenly disappeared from the spot. In the distance, the middle-aged man's pupils suddenly shrank. He was about to make a move, but at this moment, Amu suddenly shouted angrily, Freeze! As soon as her voice fell, the middle-aged man felt his whole body go numb. Although it was only for a moment, this moment was fatal. Before he could react, a white light directly flashed through his throat. Chi! The middle-aged man's head directly flew out. Blood spurted out like a fountain. At the moment when his head flew out, he looked at Amu. Amu blinked, I don't know how to fight, but I know how to support, hee. The middle-aged man died with his eyes wide open. He was careless. Really careless. Otherwise, it was absolutely impossible for God Teacher to kill him. God Teacher glanced at Amu, then looked at Shen Gong in the sky. Shen Gong's expression was extremely ugly at this moment. It wasn't easy for a strong person to appear, and he was gone just like that? Shen Gong's face was expressionless. What a big idiot! The battle was still going on. Currently, both sides were evenly matched. However, the expressions of Amu and a Qian became more and more solemn, because those dark creatures were still there. They were continuously coming from the spatial crack. They were really endless. If this continued, even the Celestial clan and the Demon clan would be forcefully exhausted to death. A Qian said softly, This is not the way to go on. Amu nodded. These dark creatures were endless. Moreover, that Shen Gong was obviously still waiting for even more powerful dark creatures to come out. If this continued, both the Wu clan and the Celestial clan would be finished. At this moment, a loud sound suddenly came from the transmission array behind Shen Gong. Then, a shadow floated out. Seeing this shadow, everyone's expression instantly changed. Even Shen Gong's expression became somewhat solemn at this moment. The shadow took a deep breath greedily and said softly, The world that I haven't seen for a long time. Shen Gong pointed at Yi Ling below. Control this person, and you can control that Yi Xian. The shadow looked at Yi Ling below, and in the next moment, he disappeared from the spot. Swoosh! A huge crack suddenly appeared in the sky above Shaman City. In front of Yi Ling, a Qian held a white staff and pointed it forward. At the tip of the staff, a ray of white light poured out. At this moment, a fist suddenly hit the ray of white light. Boom! The white light shattered with a bang. In front of a Qian, the shadow was about to attack again. At this moment, a moose suddenly chanted an incantation. In the next moment, the shadow's body froze. When she saw this, a Qian suddenly punched the shadow's head. However, her punch hit nothing but air. Because the shadow had already retreated to the front of Shen Gong. The shadow turned to look at Amu. Amu blinked and said, "He fled." Shen Gong spoke in a low voice, "We must capture that Yi Ling. Only this woman can make Yi Xian submit." The shadow glanced at Amu and a Qian. "We must deal with these two women first." Shen Gong glanced at Wu Shi and shook his head. "If I attack, then he will attack as well." The shadow fell silent for a moment, and then he suddenly turned around to look at the teleportation formation. Suddenly, an old man walked out from within the teleportation formation. The shadow was stunned when he saw the old man, and then he said, "Elder Chen, you're here as well?" Elder Chen glanced below. "Capture that Yi Xian as soon as possible." The shadow spoke in a low voice. "Master, what do you mean?" Elder Chen nodded. "His identity isn't simple. We must control him." The shadow nodded. "Capture his younger sister, and you'll be able to control him. However, that woman's strength isn't inferior to mine." Elder Chen said, "You keep her busy. I'll do the rest." The shadow nodded slightly. "All right." As soon as he finished speaking, he vanished on the spot. A Qian spoke in a low voice. "Take care." As soon as she finished speaking, she transformed into a ray of white light that shot into the sky. Amu looked up into the sky. Meanwhile, the old man suddenly appeared in front of Yi Ling, and he smashed his fist towards Yi Ling. A shield suddenly appeared in front of Yi Ling. The Taiji shield. The old man's fist smashed against the Taiji shield, causing it to tremble violently, and Yi Ling was pushed 300 m back. On the other hand, the old man was pushed over 30 m back as well. The old man frowned slightly, and then he charged forward once more in the next moment. In the distance, the one-legged woman suddenly looked at Xiao Dao. "Will Tendo really not show herself?" Xiao Dao spoke softly. "If it's just Shen Gong, then she might not show herself. However, she can't just ignore the appearance of these dark creatures. Moreover, she still hasn't shown herself. There's only one explanation." The one-legged woman spoke in a low voice. "She's in trouble. P.S. I've been updating on time lately. Commendable." Chapter 11:10. At this moment, the battle had reached its climax in the sky above Shaman City. Elder Chen charged towards Yi Ling again and again, but he was still unable to break Yi Ling's Tai Chi shield. Right at this moment, Arrow forced Demon Yen and God Emperor back with one slash of her sword, and both of them were pushed back a total of 10,000 feet. Arrow turned around to look in Yi Ling's direction. When she saw Elder Chen charge towards Yi Ling once again, she suddenly swept her sword horizontally across her throat. Hiss! A ripping sound resounded in the battlefield. In the distant sky, Elder Chen's expression changed drastically as he charged towards Yi Ling. He stopped abruptly, and at the same time, his throat was suddenly torn open and blood gushed out. Elder Chen instantly retreated 10,000 feet back. Once he stopped, he turned around to look at Arrow in the sky, and his gaze was incredibly solemn. At this moment, Shen Gong was looking at Arrow as well. Arrow's strength had truly exceeded his expectations. Arrow walked over to Yi Ling. She raised her head to look at the dark living beings that covered the sky, and her expression was incredibly gloomy. As if she'd thought of something, Arrow turned around to look at Amu. "How much longer does he have?" Amu glanced at the grave and said, "He still needs some time." A period. Aluo slowly closed his eyes. After a moment, Arrow suddenly looked towards the sky. "Retreat!" Right after she finished speaking, Amu hurriedly said, "All members of the Wu clan and Tian clan, retreat." In the sky, the powerful warriors of the Wu clan and Tian clan retreated swiftly. Arrow opened her palm, and the eternal sword suddenly appeared in her hand. She looked towards the sky, and a vicious glint flashed in her eyes. "Sword to destroy the heavens." As soon as she finished speaking, the eternal sword in her hand suddenly transformed into a ray of light that charged into the sky. Shen Gong's expression instantly changed drastically when he saw this ray of light, and he hurriedly shouted furiously, "Block this sword!" As he spoke, he was about to attack, but he didn't in the end. Because he sensed danger. His intuition told him that he couldn't take this strike. Elder Chen didn't take the attack head-on. Just like that, the sword shot into the sky, and then it transformed into countless rays of light that shot towards the surroundings. Chi-chi-chi-chi-chi-chi-chi-rong. In an instant, the sound of something slicing rang out in the sky. As these sounds rang out, countless dark beings fell. Below, countless people watched this scene in horror. This sword was too terrifying. On the horizon, the one-legged woman said softly, "What a powerful arrow!" Xiao Dao nodded. No wonder he is the best fighter in the Cambrian era. In the distance, Arrow's sword had killed at least 100,000 dark creatures. When the dark spirits in the sky looked at Arrow, their eyes were filled with fear. Shen Gong glanced at Arrow, then turned to Elder Chen. Elder Chen remained silent. Shen Gong said calmly, "If you want to give up, I will leave now." If these shadowy creatures stopped attacking, he would turn around and leave. Because at this moment, they weren't able to gain any advantage. Elder Chen remained silent for a long time before he turned to look at the teleportation formation. After a short while, the teleportation formation suddenly trembled, and it didn't take long for a woman to walk out of it. She wore a black dress and looked no different from a human. She held a sword in her hand as well. This sword was black. Elder Chen's expression changed when he saw the woman walk out, and he hurriedly bowed respectfully. "Greetings, Emissary Black Sword." The woman's gaze descended onto Arrow, and then the sword in her hand slashed down like a bolt of lightning. Arrow drew his sword and stabbed forward. Bang! A ray of light suddenly erupted in front of Arrow. Meanwhile, the Emissary Black Sword's body suddenly became illusory, and then a dense expanse of afterimages appeared in the sky. Meanwhile, Arrow's right foot spun lightly, and his figure transformed into a ray of light that vanished on the spot. OM! Two sword wines suddenly rose in the air, and soon after, an endless amount of sword glares sliced through the sky above Shaman City. These sword glares were like shooting stars that intersected with each other, and in just a moment, the entire sky above Shaman City turned into a dark space. Elder Chen was about to speak when another woman walked out from the pitch-black hole. She wore a black dress, her face was covered, and there was a black saber hanging from her waist. Elder Chen's expression changed once more, and he hurriedly bowed. "Emissary Black Sword." The woman didn't speak. She just looked at Arrow. Meanwhile, Shen Gong suddenly pointed at Yiling. "Capture this person, and we'll be able to make Yi Xian submit to us." The Emissary Black Sword's gaze moved down and fell on Yiling. In the next moment, she vanished on the spot, and a blade energy that was tens of thousands of feet long slashed down from the sky. Amu narrowed his eyes slightly. "Block this blade." The moment the powerful warriors of the Wu clan and the Tian clan moved, Shen Gong and the others disappeared from the spot once more. At that moment, there was no one left on the side of the Wu clan and the Tian clan. Yiling looked at the blade energy descending on her. She swung her right hand, and the Taiji shield suddenly flew up. The blade arrived. Boom! An earth-shattering explosion suddenly resounded through the sky. The Taiji shield had forcefully withstood the Saber Envoy's attack, but Yiling's face instantly turned pale. The Emissary Black Sword swung down again. Boom! At that moment, Yiling and the Taiji shield retreated nearly 10,000 feet. The Emissary Black Sword was about to attack again when a woman appeared before her. The one-legged woman. The Emissary Black Sword looked at the one-legged woman, and without a single word, she drew her blade and swung it down. The blade was incredibly fast, and it disappeared in an instant. The one-legged woman closed her eyes slightly and threw a punch. Boom! The blade energy suddenly stopped in front of the one-legged woman, then exploded. The one-legged woman threw another punch. The space in front of her directly turned into nothingness. The emissary frowned, and her right hand suddenly drew her blade and slashed down. This time she used both hands. Boom! As the blade energy exploded, the two women instantly retreated, and this retreat took them several thousand feet each. In the distant sky, Shen Gong suddenly shouted, "Who are you?" Ah! At this moment, he was on the verge of collapse. After capturing Yi Xian, First the Wu clan protected him, then the mutant beast scripture came to help, then the Tian clan, then the undefeatable arrow, and now this one-legged woman. Why were there so many people helping Yi Xian? And each one was stronger than the last. What was wrong with this world? The one-legged woman ignored Shen Gong and looked at the emissary black sword in front of her. The emissary placed her right hand on the hilt of her blade, and a powerful aura gathered in her blade. The emissary suddenly drew her blade. Chi! The space in front of the one-legged woman suddenly split open, and at this moment, the one-legged woman threw a punch. A fist energy flashed on her fist. Rumble! The surrounding space suddenly trembled violently. The one-legged woman retreated frantically, and the black blade emissary also retreated rapidly. As she retreated, the one-legged woman narrowed her eyes. She suddenly raised her right hand towards the sky. Star condensation. Once he finished speaking, an endless amount of starlight gathered towards the sky above Shaman City like a tidal wave from the galaxy in the distance. Very soon, an endless amount of starlight gathered together to form the mark of a fist. He kicked the woman's head. The one-legged woman looked at the black blade envoy in the distance. Without any nonsense, she punched out. The starlight fist seal suddenly swept out. In the distance, the black blade envoy narrowed her eyes. Her right hand suddenly gripped the hilt of her blade, and then she pulled it out, slashing again and again. Chi 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 chi. Ripping sounds resounded incessantly as strand after strand of saber energy slashed incessantly towards the fist. Boom boom boom. Explosions resounded incessantly. Suddenly, the woman vanished on the spot. The black blade user also disappeared on the spot. The speed of the two was so fast that it was impossible to follow with the naked eye. In the sky, Shen Gong suddenly gazed at Elder Chen. Continue calling for reinforcements. Elder Chen glanced at Shen Gong. Why aren't you calling for reinforcements? Shen Gong spoke fiercely. Most of the experts from the era of Tendo have been sealed by Tendo. If Yi Xian doesn't show himself, then they won't be able to escape at all. Elder Chen fell silent. Shen Gong continued, most of the experts have been kept busy, so we can seize this opportunity to annihilate them in one go. Otherwise, they'll definitely become a huge problem. Elder Chen glanced down, and then he turned his head to look at the pitch-black hole. He remained silent for a moment before he said, Lord? After a moment passed, the pitch-black hole suddenly started trembling. Amu's face instantly fell when he witnessed this scene. More experts are about to escape. Exactly what sort of power is this? Suddenly, a black-robed figure appeared not too far away from Shen Gong. Xiao Dao frowned when she saw the black-robed figure, and she seemed to have noticed something. Her eyes narrowed slightly. It's not a living being of darkness. Even I don't know. It's not from this world. Her pupils constricted when she spoke up to this point. I've discovered the secret of the study room. The black-robed figure suddenly gazed at Xiao Dao, and then he gazed at Xiao Dao. May I know if you intend to interfere? Everyone looked in the direction of the small path when they heard this. Xiao Dao. That extremely mysterious woman. Amu was gazing at Xiao Dao as well. Actually, she'd noticed Xiao Dao's existence a long time ago, but she hadn't asked for his help. Because she knew that if Xiao Dao intended to act, then he would definitely act. If he didn't, then it would be pointless no matter what she said. Xiao Dao gazed at the black-robed figure. What do you think? The black-robed figure smiled. We've investigated you. Even though we don't know your origins, we do know that you're heavily injured right now. If you act now, then it'll be extremely disadvantageous to you. So, you better think it through. Xiao Dao smiled. You've even investigated me. Interesting. The black-robed figure nodded. We've investigated all the experts in this world. That woman is gone, so no one can threaten us anymore. He paused for a moment and continued. You're only half. Fortunately, you're heavily injured right now, so you're not that much of a threat to us. However, we don't want to offend you as well. So long as you don't interfere, then we'll be fine. Xiao Dao gazed at the black-robed figure. What if I interfere? The black-robed figure nodded. Then please provide me with your guidance. Xiao Dao roared with laughter. Looks like I have to take a side as well. The black-robed figure gazed at Xiao Dao. He doesn't seem to have any advantage without that woman. Xiao Dao blinked. Is that so? The black-robed figure spoke indifferently. Since you intend to interfere, Then please provide me with your guidance. The corners of Xiao Dao's mouth curled up slightly, and then she vanished on the spot. Chapter 11:11. As soon as Xiao Dao vanished, the black-robed figure vanished as well. 2 afterimages streaked across the sky. A moment of silence ensued. Bang! An earth-shattering explosion resounded in the sky, and the black-robed figure instantly retreated over 3 kilometers away. When he stopped, the space behind him trembled violently and then cracked open. The expressions of Shen Gong and the others darkened at the sight of this. Especially Demon Yen and God Emperor. At this moment, both of them were slightly regretful. They hadn't expected that so many experts would come to Yi Xian's aid at this moment. If Shen Gong hadn't recruited so many experts, the Fiend Clan and God Spirit Clan wouldn't have been a match for him at all. Although they were slightly regretful, they had no way out at this moment. In the distance, the black-robed figure gazed at Xiao Dao. She slowly clenched her fists and said softly, "I never expected you to be so strong." Xiao Dao smiled. "Is that so?" The black-robed figure chuckled. "But it's really unwise for you to interfere in this matter." As soon as he finished speaking, he slowly soared into the sky. Suddenly, a ghostly face appeared in front of him. In an instant, the entire space between the heavens and the earth became illusory. In the distance, the smile on Xiao Dao's face gradually vanished. "It's not the power of this world." The black-robed figure laughed. "Your Excellency is truly knowledgeable." As soon as he finished speaking, he lightly pointed at Xiao Dao. "Go!" As soon as he finished speaking, the ghostly face suddenly flew out. As soon as it flew out, it grew explosively in the air and instantly became thousands of meters tall. The space in its path was instantly reduced to nothingness. It was an extremely shocking sight. Xiao Dao took a step forward and pointed a finger forward. A speck of white light suddenly appeared on her fingertip. Bang! The ghostly face trembled violently and was forced to a stop by the speck of white light. However, it didn't dissipate. On the contrary, the speck of white light around Xiao Dao gradually became illusory. Xiao Dao's eyes narrowed slightly. She suddenly withdrew her hand, and the ghostly face drowned her. Everyone present was stunned. Even the black-robed figure was slightly stunned. Right at this moment, boom! The ghost face suddenly exploded, and Xiao Dao appeared in front of everyone again. Beside her, there were some tiny dots of light. These dots of light were so tiny that ordinary people wouldn't be able to notice them at all. However, the black-robed man still discovered it. Xiao Dao looked at the black-robed man. The black-robed man said in a deep voice, "You are hiding your true strength. Who the hell are you?" Xiao Dao lightly waved her jade-like hand, and a surge of energy quietly disappeared. She smiled. "Are you also curious about my identity?" The black-robed man chuckled and said, "Sir, I really don't understand. Why did you come to help Yi Xian?" Xiao Dao looked straight at the black-robed man, his smile fading. "It's simple, because I don't think you have a chance of winning." The black-robed man suddenly laughed out loud. His laughter was unbridled. After laughing for a moment, he looked at Xiao Dao. "Your Excellency, you know nothing about us." Xiao Dao shook his head. "No, I know too much." The black-robed man smiled and said, "Do you know the woman in the plain dress who left earlier? Do you know what she will face now?" Xiao Dao looked at the black-robed man. "I know. You deliberately provoked her to leave this world. You definitely want to deal with her." The black-robed man nodded. "Once she goes up, she will undoubtedly die." Xiao Dao shook his head. "If you say that, then we have nothing to talk about." The black-robed man stared at Xiao Dao. "What do you mean?" Xiao Dao chuckled. "What I mean is that you all did well. You all did very well." The black-robed man looked at Xiao Dao. After a moment, he suddenly opened his palm. In his palm, a small golden sword appeared. On the tip of the sword, there was a small red dot. The moment the small sword appeared, the surrounding space directly shattered. Seeing this scene, the surrounding experts' expressions changed. They all retreated. Down below, Amu also frowned. What divine artifact? At this time, a Qian appeared beside her. A Qian looked at the black-robed man in the sky. "I'm afraid these people are not from the 5th dimension." Not from the 5th dimension. Amu was silent. She had already thought of this point. At this time, Xiao Dao suddenly laughed. They are not from the 6th dimension either. Amu looked at Xiao Dao. They are from the 5th dimension, but they are related to the 6th dimension. Xiao Dao smiled. Smart. The black-robed man suddenly laughed. This sword was originally used to deal with the plain-dressed woman. However, since she has left, I will use it to deal with you. As soon as he finished speaking, he pointed with his fingers. Go. As soon as he finished speaking, the small golden sword suddenly flew out. Chi. Wherever the small sword passed, it tore apart everything, destroying heaven and earth. Everyone in the surroundings was visibly moved when they witnessed this scene. The power of this small sword was too strong. Not to mention killing a person, it could easily destroy the entire nothingness dimension. Xiao Dao chuckled. You want to use this thing to deal with her? I'm afraid you are dreaming. As soon as she finished speaking, she opened her palm. In her hand, a flying knife appeared. The next moment, this flying knife suddenly flew out. Boom! In the sky, a blade light and a sword light suddenly exploded, and the entire sky turned pitch black. Spatial annihilation. Meanwhile, the small golden sword had returned to the black-robed man's hand. Looking at the cracked small golden sword in his hand, the black-robed man's eyes were filled with horror. This small golden sword did not belong to this universe. Cracked. The black-robed man looked at Xiao Dao with an extremely solemn expression. Who the hell are you? But at this moment, little Daoist's body suddenly became illusory. In the distance, the black-robed man's expression changed greatly. He stabbed forward with a small golden sword in his hand. On the small sword, a sword light erupted like a scorching sun. Little Daoist put her fingers together. She pointed out, and on her fingertip, there was a flying dagger. This flying knife directly slashed the sword light. Boom! The sword light instantly shattered, and the next moment, the flying knife flashed past the black-robed man's throat. Chi! The black-robed man's head flew into the air, but his soul had fled at the instant that his body was destroyed. Xiao Dao gazed at the black-robed man's soul. She was just about to attack when an extremely powerful aura suddenly arose from within the pitch-black space behind Shengong. Xiao Dao frowned slightly. A moment later, a fist flashed out from within the teleportation formation. Xiao Dao lightly swept 2 fingers forward. Hiss! The fist imprint shattered, but the little Daoist retreated thousands of feet. Once she stopped moving, her brows knit together slightly while her face turned slightly pale. Xiao Dao raised her head and gazed at the pitch-black space in the distance. An illusory middle-aged man had walked out from within the teleportation formation. The middle-aged man wore a large black robe, had his hands behind his back, and a small, dark character was inscribed at the center of his forehead. All the living beings of the darkness stopped moving when they saw the middle-aged man, and they bowed to him. Greetings, Lord Skyless. Lord Skyless. Xiao Dao frowned when she heard this. She knew this person. During the era of the Tendo, this person was quite famous. He declared that he would destroy the Tendo and turn the entire 5th dimension into the dark world. Thus, he'd changed his name to Skyless. In the dark world, his strength was ranked in the top 3. He'd been personally suppressed by the Tendo all those years ago. She hadn't expected that he'd come out as well. Did something really happen to the Tendo? Xiao Dao frowned. If she was given some time, then she could investigate it. After Skyless appeared, the Black Sword Emissary and the Black Blade Emissary appeared on either side of him. However, their gazes were fixed on Arrow and the one-legged woman. Arrow's face was expressionless. The eternal sword in his hand trembled slightly, and he was ready to be unsheathed at any moment. The one-legged woman's expression was calm, and there wasn't a trace of emotion in her eyes. Skyless looked at Xiao Dao. Miss Xiao Dao, our dark world has never had any enmity with you. Why are you interfering in this matter? Xiao Dao smiled. If you like it, then so be it. Skyless, where's your lord? Has he recovered from his battle with the Tendo? Skyless smiled. Thank you for your concern, Miss Xiao Dao. Lord is fine. Xiao Dao looked at Skyless. With your strength, you can't threaten the Tendo. You dare to appear in this universe so brazenly. There's someone behind you. Skyless smiled. Can't I? Xiao Dao said in a deep voice. Something happened to the Tendo. Skyless smiled. What do you think? Xiao Dao smiled. Good skill. Coming out without a sound, causing trouble to the Tendo without a sound, and letting the plain-dressed woman leave this world. You're really amazing, Skyless whispered. Miss Xiao Dao, with your knowledge, you should know the use of the study room. I'm curious, why didn't you seize the study room? Xiao Dao shrugged. I'm afraid of death. Skyless smiled. Are you talking about the plain-dressed woman? Xiao Dao looked at Skyless. How are you going to deal with her? Skyless chuckled. If it's in this world, we're still afraid of her. Unfortunately, she's arrogant and wants to break into the upper realm. This is exactly what the higher-ups want. As long as she goes to the upper realm, she'll definitely die. Xiao Dao was silent. At this moment, she was mourning for the higher-ups. Underestimating the plain-dressed woman. In fact, everyone underestimated this woman. Including her. She didn't underestimate, but she really didn't know how strong this woman was. Even she didn't know, how terrifying was this. Not to mention this world, even her family couldn't afford to offend the plain-dressed woman. At this time in the distance, Skyless suddenly smiled. Miss Xiao Dao, we have no intention of being enemies with you. As long as you don't make a move, we will never offend you. Xiao Dao looked at Skyless. What if I want to make a move? Skyless smiled. Miss Xiao Dao, I won't hide it from you. Today, we must take this Yi Xian away. He's the lord of the human realm and has a great relationship with the prophet. We must get him. When the plain-dressed woman was still here, we were still a bit afraid. But now no one can protect him. Although Miss Xiao Dao's strength is strong, you're just one person. As soon as he finished speaking, a powerful aura suddenly emerged from the pitch-black spatial hole behind him. Not long after, 11 strong people dressed in black appeared behind Skyless. Seeing these 11 people, Xiao Dao's face instantly sank. Not only Xiao Dao, but Arrow and the one-legged woman's face also sank at this moment. The strength of these 11 people is perhaps only second to her, Xiao Dao, and the one-legged woman. Adding Skyless and the others, the strength of their side can be said to be completely crushed. Whether it's in quantity or quality. Skyless looked at Xiao Dao and the others and smiled. Sorry, we have a lot of people. Is that so? Suddenly, a ray of light descended here. The ray of light dispersed, and an old man appeared before them. It was the sword sect's Elder Gu. Elder Gu gazed at Skyless. I heard you have a lot of people? As soon as he finished speaking, he opened his palm, and a small sword suddenly shot into the sky. It didn't take long for the small sword to vanish into the starry sky. P.S. I heard you have a lot of tickets? Chapter 11-12. Xiao Dao's expression eased up slightly when he saw old Gu. If the old geezer still didn't show himself, then the matter would truly be difficult to resolve. The Sword Sect. She knew a little about this ancient power Dao Yi, and she was probably the only one who knew a little about Dao Yi. Because the place the Sword Sect resided at was too special. Outsiders were utterly unaware of it. Moreover, the reason she knew about this power was because of that white little fellow. All those years ago, she'd been extremely proud and arrogant. So, her first thought upon seeing that white little fellow was to seize him from her. Unfortunately, she'd overlooked the little girl and the green-clothed man by the little fellow's side. And that white-robed woman as well. It was a tragic experience. Moreover, the green-clothed man was the sect master of the sword sect. If there was anyone in this universe who could resist the sword of the woman in a plain dress, then the green-clothed man was one of them. But the problem was that both of them were related to Yi Xian. She felt speechless when she thought about all of this. Wu Tian gazed at old Gu. Where did you come from? Old Gu laughed coldly. You want to take my young sect master? Have you asked my sword sect? Wu Tian frowned. The sword sect? What's that? Suddenly, a sword howl resounded from the depths of the starry sky. Everyone turned their heads to look towards the starry sky, and they saw 12 rays of light there. It didn't take long for those 12 rays of light to pass through space and appear here. The expressions of everyone in the surroundings changed when they saw these 12 people, including Xiao Dao. All 12 swordsmen were at the mortal sword realm. Even though besides the man in the lead, the others were only at the first level of the mortal sword realm, how terrifying was that? Moreover, the swordsman in the lead was even at the peak of the second level of the mortal sword realm. Most importantly, all of them were at the ruler realm. Their cultivations were at the peak of the mortal sword realm as well. A Qian who stood by Amu's side spoke softly. Where did they come from? His voice carried a trace of shock. Amu blinked. It's mine. A Chen looked at Amu. Amu grinned. Didn't you hear what that old man said? My family's young sect master. I'm their young sect master, so these belong to my family. A Chen glanced at Amu. When did you become so thick-skinned? Amu. A Chen suddenly said, I'm your sister, right? Amu nodded. We are sisters. A Chen said softly, then they are still our family. Amu looked at a Chen. When he saw the 12 swordsmen, Skyla's expression turned extremely ugly. 12 swordsmen. Moreover, all of them were ordinary swords, and they were all at the sovereign realm. Where did all this come from? Shen Gong's face was also extremely ugly. At this moment, he really wanted to curse. Was there no end to this? How many helpers did this Yi Xian have? Moreover, each one was more abnormal than the other. Was this Yi Xian the reincarnation of a Tendo? Even if he was the reincarnation of a Tendo, it wouldn't be this exaggerated, right? Demon Yen and God Emperor's expressions were also extremely ugly. The appearance of these 12 people made them understand one thing. That was why Xiao Dao and the others wanted to help Yi Xian. The people behind this guy were not just the plain-dressed woman. Who was he? Old Gu looked at the man in the lead. Senior brother Gu Nye. Where is senior brother Lu Yunxian? The man called Gu Nye smiled. He has a mission, so I came. Old Gu said solemnly. Where is the sect master? Gu Nye said softly. The sect master went to a very far place. As he spoke, he glanced at the scene. Where is little junior brother? Old Gu pointed at the tomb in the distance. Little junior brother is charging into the rebirth realm now. Gu Nye glanced at the tomb while a trace of surprise flashed through his eyes. The second level of the mortal sword realm? Old Gu nodded. Gu Nye roared with laughter. He really is an extraordinary genius. As he spoke, he turned around to look at Wu Tian. What did you say my sword sect is? Let me tell you what my sword sect is. As soon as he finished speaking, he suddenly transformed into a ray of light that vanished on the spot. In the distance, Wu Tian's expression changed drastically, and he suddenly pressed his palms together. Boundless world of darkness. As soon as he finished speaking, a ray of black light instantly enveloped him and Gu Nye. At this moment, a ray of sword light tore through the black light, and then it appeared in front of Skyless. Wu Tian's eyes narrowed slightly, and then he stomped his right foot. Domain. As soon as he finished speaking, a shapeless force suddenly enveloped the ray of light. Right at this moment, the ray of light suddenly trembled violently, and it directly destroyed the domain. At this moment, Wu Tian was horrified in his heart, and he hurriedly flashed backwards. However, it was still slightly too late, and the ray of light had directly slashed apart his body. Wu Tian, who was already in soul form, retreated explosively by almost 3 kilometers. Gu Nye held the sword in his hand as he looked at Wu Tian. He smiled. Now do you know what the sword sect is? Wu Tian stared fixedly at Gu Nye. Then do you know who's behind us? Gu Nye smiled. Our sword sect is fearless. As soon as he finished speaking, he looked at the 12 swordsmen behind him. Kill! The 12 swordsmen immediately transformed into 12 rays of light that charged forward. Meanwhile, Amu spoke abruptly. All the experts of the Wu clan attack. Don't leave a single one alive. A Chen's voice resounded along with it. All the experts of the Tian clan, listen up. Kill. Don't leave a single one alive. The variant beast scripture led the beasts to charge forward as well. Arrow waved her right hand lightly, and the undefeated army behind her charged forward. This time, Yi Xian's side was completely crushed. Because the combat strength of the 12 swordsmen in the lead was truly too terrifying. These swordsmen could really fight 10 enemies by themselves, and they were practically invincible in the same realm of cultivation. They were completely crushed. The expressions of Shen Gong and the others instantly changed when they witnessed this scene. If this continued, then they would be annihilated in less than an hour. Right at this moment, Wu Tian suddenly shouted furiously. Retreat! Retreat! They had no choice but to retreat now because they'd severely underestimated their opponents. The experts of the Dark World retreated in unison when they heard Wu Tian. Demon Yen and God Emperor led their forces away when they witnessed this scene. Amu suddenly said, Stop them! Gunye suddenly transformed into a ray of light that charged towards Wu Tian. Wu Tian didn't hesitate at all when he saw Gunye charge over, and he transformed into a ray of black light that vanished within the teleportation formation. The current him was not Gunyen's match at all. The black sword emissary and the others by her side also turned around and left. Soon, the experts of the dark world disappeared into the horizon like a tide. However, many had died. Countless corpses of dark world experts fell from the sky like it was raining. Fresh blood dyed the entire sky red. As for Gu Ni, he directly rushed into the teleportation array. The 12 swordsmen behind him also wanted to follow, but at this moment, a sword light floated out. The sword light dissipated. It was ancient sin. Gu Ni looked at the man who had died. The spatial teleportation array disappeared and said softly, "It's not the power of this world." Old Gu appeared beside Gunye, and he looked at the spatial teleportation formation and said in a low voice, "Many forces are targeting the young sect master." Gunyen turned to look at the tomb and said softly, "Young sect master's karma is not simple." "No wonder sect master went there personally," Old Man Gu said in a deep voice. "Is sect master running around for young sect master's matter?" Gunyen nodded. Hearing this, Old Man Gu furrowed his brows. "Even the sect leader can't solve it?" Gunyen said softly, "It's not that simple." Old Man Gu's face sank when he heard this. He was very clear about the sect leader's strength. If even the sect leader couldn't solve it, then the matter was really quite serious. Right at this moment, Xiao Dao appeared by Gunyen's side. She looked at Gunyen and said, "Where's your sect leader?" Gunyen looked at Xiao Dao and said with a smile, "Sect leader has gone somewhere else. He's been gone for a very long time." Xiao Dao frowned slightly. "That little girl and the little white fellow went with him?" A trace of surprise flashed in Gunyen's eyes. "Young miss knows them?" Xiao Dao nodded. "I've seen them a few times." Gunyen nodded slightly. "We haven't seen sect leader for a very long time as well." As he spoke, he turned to glance at the corpses of the dark living beings below. "Young miss, do you know who released these dark living beings?" Xiao Dao said softly, "It should be someone from the ascendant dimension that interfered." Gunyen frowned slightly. "We've never allowed anyone from the ascendant dimension to come down here." Xiao Dao looked at Gunyen. "All of you have been standing guard there?" Gunyen nodded. Xiao Dao said in a light voice, "It isn't your problem." Gunyen asked, "Young miss, what do you mean?" Xiao Dao glanced at the depths of the starry sky and said, "They probably snuck in from somewhere else. It's best that all of you investigate after you return. Something isn't right." As she spoke, she seemed to have thought of something, and her eyes narrowed slightly. "All of you better be careful." Gunyen said in a low voice, "Young miss, you mean that they might be targeting us?" Xiao Dao nodded. "The fifth dimension tribulation is about to arrive, and the hearts of the people are in chaos. It's the best opportunity for them to make a move." Gunyen hesitated for a moment and said, "Has that woman in a plain dress really left?" Xiao Dao nodded. Gunyen sighed lightly. Originally, the woman in a plain dress was the last person in this universe that could deter the myriad of worlds in the universe. But now that she'd left, the matter was extraordinarily troublesome. Xiao Dao looked at Gunyen. "Can all of you come over?" Gunyen shook his head. "No. If we leave that place, then this universe will be even more dangerous." Xiao Dao frowned slightly. "All of you are unable to annihilate them with your strength?" Gunyen laughed bitterly. "They never fight us head-on, and they just hide. But so long as we relax, they'll come out, and we're helpless against them." Xiao Dao said in a low voice, "Can't we kill our way over?" Gunyen shook his head. "We've tried in the past. That place is too chaotic, and it's extremely far. They hide everywhere, and we're helpless against them." Xiao Dao suddenly said, "All of you go back." Gunyen gazed at Xiao Dao, and Xiao Dao said in a light voice, "The enemy of an enemy is a friend. Understand?" Gunyen's eyes narrowed slightly. "They intend to act against us?" Xiao Dao said in a low voice, "They don't have the strength, but what if they play tricks?" Gunyen fell silent for a short moment, and then he said, "I originally intended to take junior brother away this time, but Xiao Dao shook her head. "If all of you take him away, then the matter will become even more serious." As she spoke, she turned to glance at the tomb and said in a light voice, "That study room was brought by the prophet from above. This prophet. In the words of that little girl, he's truly a sly old bastard. Chapter 11:13. Gunyan blinked when he heard Xiao Dao. Sly bastard? What do you mean? Xiao Dao spoke indifferently. I mean very sly. Gunyan was speechless. Xiao Dao suddenly said, What did you encounter when you entered the teleportation formation just now? Gunyan spoke in a low voice. A formidable force, and the person who attacked isn't from this dimension. Xiao Dao's beautiful brows knit together slightly. Gunyan gazed at the tomb in the distance and spoke softly. It's truly dangerous for junior brother to stay here. Xiao Dao shook his head. This is the path he chose. Gunyan grinned. Just like the sect master did all those years ago. Fine, I won't be taking him with me. As soon as he finished speaking, he cupped his fists to everyone here. Everyone, we still have an assignment to carry out, so we'll be leaving first. If you have the chance, please come to the sword sect to be our guests. We'll meet again in the future. As soon as he finished speaking, he and the 12 others behind him transformed into 12 rays of light that vanished into the starry sky. They're gone. Everyone here exchanged glances with each other. Needless to say, all of them were extremely shocked right now. That was too terrifying. 12 mortal swordsmen. Such a lineup was truly heaven-defying. How Tian and the others felt a slight lingering fear in their hearts. Fortunately, they hadn't joined forces with Demon Yen and the others. Otherwise, the Tian race would have probably been finished. The Sword Sect. At this moment, everyone throughout the 5th dimension knew of the Sword Sect. Amu walked over to Variant Beast Scripture, and then she bowed slightly. Thank you, young miss, for coming to help us. We'll remember this kindness. Variant Beast Scripture spoke in a low voice. Is it all right for me to stay here with the Wu clan? Amu blinked and then she hurriedly said, Of course. You can stay here. Feel free to let me know if you need anything. Variant Beast Scripture glanced at the tomb and said, Let's wait for him to come out. Amu nodded. All right. She knew that Variant Beast Scripture had definitely come to help because of Yi Xian. The Wu clan didn't have that much influence. Amu walks in front of Arrow, she once again bows. Many thanks to Miss Arrow for coming to help. Arrow sheathed his sword and said softly, We're on the same side, there's no need to be like this. Amu smiled and said, Understood. They were on the same side. Arrow was here to help. He was really here to help. Of course, no matter what the reason was, the Wu clan and Yi Xian should be grateful to those who came to help. Amu looked at Xiao Dao and the one-legged woman. Xiao Dao said softly, Don't celebrate too early. Those people won't give up. Amu nodded. I understand. Miss Xiao Dao, may I ask you a few questions? Xiao Dao looked at Amu. You want to know the background of those people? Amu nodded slightly. Yes. Xiao Dao said softly, that Shen Gong was the righteous god of the Tendo era. In the Tendo era, there were a total of 109 righteous gods. They were all the top experts of the Tendo era. By the way, some of the ancestors of your Wu clan and the Tian clan were also righteous gods of the Tendo era. Hearing this, Amu and Xiao Dao were somewhat shocked. Amu said in astonishment, Our Wu clan's ancestors? Regarding the Wu clan's ancestors, they actually didn't know much about them. Because they were a whole era apart. Xiao Dao nodded. Your Wu clan's ancestors were the top among those righteous gods. At that time, those righteous gods were getting stronger and more arrogant. Some righteous gods wanted to eliminate the Tendo who posed the greatest threat to them. Amu said in a deep voice, They were the ones who attacked first. Xiao Dao nodded. These righteous gods were the ones who attacked first. They wanted to defy the heavens. I have to say, if they all joined forces, Tendo really wouldn't be able to defeat them. Unfortunately, Tendo was smarter than them. She directly disintegrated them from within. Moreover, she caught them off guard and took the initiative to kill the 2 strongest righteous gods. Just like that, those righteous gods were played to death by her alone. Amu, Xiao Dao said softly, as far as I know, Tendo sealed 29 righteous gods in Buzhou Sacred Mountain. If these 29 righteous gods were released, the consequences would be very serious. That Shen Gong wanted to release these 29 righteous gods. And if he wanted to release these 29 righteous gods, he would need Tendo or Human King. Obviously, Tendo is impossible. Therefore, he definitely wouldn't give up on Yi Xian. Saying that, she paused and then said, "What I'm most worried about is, if there are people from the upper realm helping him," Amu said in a deep voice. "Those dark creatures are also from the era of Tendo, right?" Xiao Dao nodded. "Yes. Those dark creatures are from the era of Tendo. Moreover, they existed even earlier than Shengong and the other righteous gods. The Lord of the Dark World had appeared in this universe with the heavenly Tao. This person's strength is not ordinary. Back then, Tendo was able to suppress him. But now, Tendo..." Amu looked at Xiao Dao. "Did something happen to Tendo?" Xiao Dao shook his head. "Something must have happened to this woman. But she will definitely be fine. Her IQ is terrifyingly high." Amu nodded slightly. "I understand. But, wasn't that study created by the prophet? Why did it become something from the upper realm?" Xiao Dao looked at Amu. "The study was created by the prophet, but the prophet doesn't belong to this universe. Moreover, there are things that don't belong to this universe." Amu asked, "Who is the prophet?" Xiao Dao shook his head. "I won't answer this question. Because it won't do you any good." Amu was silent. Qian suddenly asked, "In other words, the people from above want this study, right?" Xiao Dao nodded. "Yes." Qian said, "What if we give them the study?" Xiao Dao said calmly, "Don't pin your hope of survival on the mercy of the enemy. Also, don't underestimate the prophet. He used his own life to play chess. Do you think it's easy?" Qian was silent. Xiao Dao glanced at the two women and said, "Both of you are intelligent people and have a far-sighted vision. However, there's always a higher mountain. The prophet and the Tendo are both good chess players. Don't think about breaking the game they set. Just let nature take its course. Because they have never thought of harming you. But if you're stupid and want to break the game, then you'll really be courting death. Understand?" Amu nodded slightly. "Understood." Xiao Dao continued, "It's a good thing for both of your clans that the two of you can join forces." Amu suddenly asked, "What is the sword sect fighting against?" Xiao Dao said softly, "Something very dangerous. If it weren't for them, this universe would have been gone in advance." As she said that, she looked up into the depths of the starry sky. There are many dangerous things in this vast universe. Although there have been countless powerful clans and experts in this universe, compared to the entire universe, they are insignificant. After saying that, she turned around and left. Not long after, she disappeared from everyone's sight. After Xiao Dao left, Amu suddenly said softly, "She's even more mysterious." Qian nodded. "Yes." Amu looked at the horizon and said softly, "We can't wait for the sword sect to help us every time." Qian looked at Amu. "What do you want to do?" Amu said softly, "It's already the most dangerous time." Qian narrowed her eyes. "That's for the sake of fighting against the fifth dimension tribulation." Amu smiled and didn't say anything. Qian was silent for a moment. "Indeed, if we can't get through this, why wait for the fifth dimension tribulation? Let's go." After saying that, she left with Amu. In the field, Yiling turned around and looked at the grave. There was a trace of worry in her eyes. In a graveyard, the old man looked at the horizon and sighed. He continued sweeping with his broom. Not long after, he arrived in front of a grave. On the tombstone in front of the grave were two skewers of candied hawthorns. The old man looked at the tombstone. There were no words on the tombstone. After a long time the old man sighed. He looked at the tombstone. There was a weapon in the shape of a thorn. It lay there quietly, as if waiting for its master to wake it up. The old man looked at it for a moment and said softly, "Considering the time, it should be over by now." After saying that, he turned around and left. In the depths of a distant starry sky, a white-robed woman was flying. She had her hands behind her back and there was a heroic spirit between her brows. A wine gourd hung from her waist. At this moment, the white-robed woman suddenly stopped. She looked up. Her gaze pierced through the starry sky, looking at an extremely distant place. After a long time, a sword light appeared in the depths of her eyes. The white-robed woman frowned. "Gone." After saying that, her expression suddenly became ferocious. "Don't worry, I'm not." After saying that, she suddenly punched out. Boom. Under that punch, the entire starry sky was destroyed. True nirvana. Under that punch, the entire starry sky was completely destroyed, never to appear again. In this pitch-black space, a powerful devouring force surged towards the white-robed woman. However, it did not cause her any harm. After a moment, the white-robed woman turned around and returned. Soon, she disappeared into the vast starry sky. That direction was the complete opposite of where she was originally going. In a certain grassland, a woman was squatting by the river. The river was clear and the bottom could be seen. The woman was very seriously counting the small fish in the river. At this moment, a phantom suddenly appeared not far in front of the woman. The phantom looked at the woman by the river without saying a word. The woman looked up at the phantom and said with a smile, "I said before that I won't run." The phantom looked at the woman. "I've always been curious. Why didn't you resist?" The woman smiled. "Why should I resist? This place is quite good. I can stay here and relax." The phantom said in a deep voice, "You went to see him before?" The woman nodded. "To be precise, I went to see that woman. I wanted to make her stay longer, but she ignored me." The phantom suddenly asked, "Are you afraid of her?" The woman smiled. "Why should I be afraid? I didn't offend her. I'm a good person." The phantom suddenly said, "You don't seem to be human, do you?" The woman shook her head. "As long as I'm willing, I'm human. Of course, you can also say that I'm something else." After a moment of silence, the phantom said, "The seal of the dark world has been completely lifted. We did it." The woman looked at the phantom and said with a smile, "Well done." The phantom. P.S. Between saving face and asking for a ticket, what do you think I'll choose? Chapter 11:14. By the riverside, the shadow stood quietly. The woman in front of him gently scooped with both hands, and with this, a small fish appeared in her hands. The woman smiled, gently tapped the forehead of the small fish, and then put it into the river. However, the small fish was unwilling to leave. The small fish kept swimming in front of the woman, from time to time wagging its tail at the woman, as if to express something. At this time the shadow suddenly said, "Those righteous gods that were sealed by you, they are also coming out." The woman smiled. "If they come out, then let them come out." The shadow frowned slightly. "You really don't care at all?" The woman smiled lightly. "All living beings have their own lives. What use is there for me to care?" The shadow stared at the woman. "Is that so?" The woman smiled. "Believe it or not, it's up to you." After saying that, she stood up and left. The shadow looked at the woman in the distance, silent. The attitude of the woman in front of him was too abnormal. From the moment they found her, it had been abnormal. Because the other party did not resist at all. From beginning to end, she did not resist. There must be something wrong when things are abnormal. Thinking of this, when the shadow looked at the woman in the distance, there was killing intent. At this time the woman in the distance suddenly stopped. She smiled. "Killing me will cost a lot. Not to mention others like you, even 10,000 would be useless. So, if you want to kill me, you have to find the master behind you." The shadow was silent for a long time. In the end, he did not make a move, but turned and left. As the woman said, he really did not have the ability to kill her. In the distance, the woman walked slowly, holding a small fish in her hand. After walking for a long time, the woman suddenly stopped. She looked at the small fish in her hand, and grinned. "Do you want to braise it or steam it?" After saying that, she began to make a fire. Somewhere in the dark void, Wu Tian sat on the ground. Behind him was an endless dark army. Shin Gong was also beside Wu Tian. At this moment, Shin Gong's face was extremely gloomy. Failed. Originally, in his opinion, this time capturing Yi Xian was in the bag, but he did not expect that so many experts would appear to help Yi Xian, especially that sword sect. 12 common swordsmen. What kind of immortal force was this? And that woman in a plain dress. Why were there so many experts behind Yi Xian? Just then, Skyless suddenly opened his eyes. Shen Gong looked at Skyless. "What are you going to do next?" Skyless silence. He was extremely fearful of the sword sect as well. Shen Gong suddenly said, "Let me tell you that Yi Xian is a genius. He's already at the second tier of the mortal sword realm. With his talent, if he continues to grow, It will be harder than ascending the heavens for us to capture him. Skyless looked at Shen-gong. Can you stop the sword sect? Can you stop that Xiao Dao? Shen-gong was expressionless. Isn't there someone behind you? Call it out. Let's fight him to the death. Wu Tian's eyes slowly closed. Shen-gong, I understand your feelings. However, you have to understand that the current situation is no longer something we can control. Everything has to be considered at length. Shen-gong was silent. As Skyless said, they didn't have any advantage right now. At this moment, a phantom suddenly appeared in front of Skyless. Skyless looked at the phantom. What did the higher-ups say? The phantom said, the higher-ups will find a way to hold the sword sect. Skyless said in a deep voice, there is also that Xiao Dao. This person's strength is extremely strong. She has been hiding her strength before. Shen-gong suddenly asked, do you know the true identity of that Xiao Dao? The phantom said, we are still investigating this person's identity. Shen-gong frowned slightly. You don't know her identity? The phantom nodded. This woman is too mysterious. Shen-gong hesitated and then said, what about Tendo? The phantom said softly, she doesn't seem to want to intervene. She doesn't care about anything. Shen-gong said in a deep voice, that's not right. The phantom looked at Shen-gong. Shen-gong's face was a little gloomy. This woman is insidious and cunning. It is impossible for her to not care about anything. The phantom nodded. We also know that, but there is no way. Shen-gong looked at the phantom. Why not directly kill her to get rid of future troubles? The phantom was expressionless. Do you know how much it will cost to kill her? Shen-gong was silent. That woman is not only intelligent, but her strength is also ridiculously high. Wanting to kill her, it is not an ordinary difficulty. The phantom suddenly said, it's good that she doesn't intervene. We don't have much energy to take care of her. Now the top priority is to deal with the sword sect in Yixian, as well as that Xiao Dao. Speaking of this, he looked at Shen-gong. Have you investigated that Yixian? Shen-gong nodded. Yes. The phantom said in a deep voice. There should be no one behind him, right? After a moment of silence, Shen-gong said, according to my investigation, his main backer is that plain-dressed woman. She has already left. If you can stop that Xiao Dao and sword sect, it won't be difficult for us to kill him. Sword sect? The phantom suddenly asked. Are you sure there is nothing else? Shen-gong nodded. Nothing else. We have almost understood all the experts in this world. Those who should have taken action have taken action. Those who haven't taken action are either not strong enough or don't have any. Therefore our biggest enemy now is that sword sect and Xiao Dao, as well as that arrow. After saying this, he paused. Wu clan and Tian clan can't be underestimated. These two clans must have a trump card. The phantom suddenly said, follow me. With that, he turned around and left. Shen-gong and Skyless looked at each other. Then the two of them followed. The illusory figure brought the two of them to a starry sky. The illusory figure opened his palm, and a small black disc suddenly appeared in his palm. In the next moment, the black disc flew out, and a black pillar of light suddenly soared into the sky from the black disc. This black pillar of light shot into the depths of the starry sky. After a moment, Shen-gong looked at the phantom. Great emissary, what are you doing? The great emissary said softly, asking for help. Shen-gong was about to speak, but at this moment, the black beams suddenly disappeared. Seeing this, Shen-gong frowned. The great emissary suddenly said, there will be people to deal with Xiao Dao and sword sect, but we have to solve the rest ourselves. Shen-gong frowned slightly. Is it feasible? That sword sect is not simple. The great emissary said indifferently, no matter how not simple, can they be more powerful than those above? Shen-gong nodded slightly, then he looked at Wu Tian, and the great emissary also looked at Wu Tian. Your mistress of the dark world and that great lord can make a move? Wu Tian was silent. The great emissary was expressionless. We have already helped you stall Tendo. For your dark world, this is an opportunity. If you miss this opportunity, it will be as difficult as ascending to heaven if you want to make a comeback. Wu Tian was about to speak, but at this moment, the space in front of him suddenly trembled. Wu Tian was slightly stunned. After a moment, he looked at the great emissary. I need some time. The great emissary said, how long? Wu Tian said solemnly, 3 days. The great emissary nodded. See you in 3 days. With that, he turned and disappeared. After the great emissary left, Wu Tian suddenly looked at Gong. Do you believe him? Gong was expressionless. Anyway, their goal is only that Yi Xian, isn't it? Wu Tian nodded. There is no conflict with us. Gong said solemnly, your and our opponent is that Tendo. Wu Tian said softly, get ready. See you in 3 days. With that, he turned and left. In the same place, Gong was deep in thought. No one knew what he was thinking. Ancient battlefield, Demon Yen stood on a mountain peak. Beside her was God Emperor. God Emperor suddenly said softly, they will definitely not give up. Demon Yen said, we can't make another move. God Emperor looked at Demon Yen. Demon Yen said softly, things have become more complicated. God Emperor said solemnly, what do you mean? A trace of complexity flashed in Demon Yan's eyes. Haven't you noticed? There is an outside force interfering in the affairs of this universe. And the other party's goal is that Yi Xian. If I'm not wrong, the other party should also want that study room. Compared to the other party, the difference in strength is too great. Therefore, if we continue to target Yi Xian, we will only become cannon fodder for others. With that, she paused for a moment before continuing. Furthermore, who was the one who sealed the righteous gods like the dark creatures and the divine craftsmen? Tendo. And now, Tendo has no intention of interfering. God Emperor said solemnly, if we continue to follow Gong and the others, we will become enemies with Tendo. Demon Yen nodded. Right now, there is only one best choice, and that is to wait and see. With that, she sighed softly. Targeting Yi Xian was really a wrong choice. I hope there is still time to make up for this mistake. Wu Clan. Yi Ling was still guarding in front of the grave, waiting for Yi Xian to come out. However, there was no movement from the grave. At this moment, the space in front of Yi Ling suddenly trembled. Yi Ling frowned slightly and looked at the grave. Soon, she was overjoyed. A Mu and a Chen suddenly appeared beside Yi Ling. A Mu looked at the grave, a trace of surprise flashed in her eyes. He is faster than I thought. Yi Ling looked at a Mu. Is he coming out? A Mu nodded. He should be coming out soon. Hearing this, Yi Ling nodded slightly. A Mu looked at a Chen, and the two women looked at each other with solemn eyes. Yi Ling suddenly said, they won't give up, right? A Mu nodded. If they attack again, it proves that they have a way to deal with the sword sect. With that, her expression gradually turned solemn. It seems that another tough battle is about to be fought. Tendo Pawn Shop. On this day, an old man in a black robe suddenly walked into the pawn shop. The old man had a head full of white hair, his left hand holding a dragon head crutch, his right leg was slightly lame, and he coughed from time to time. He looked like an old man with one foot in the grave. Inside the pawn shop, Xiao Dao looked up at the old man in black robe. Her eyes narrowed instantly. It's you. The old man chuckled. After so many years, Miss Xiao Dao is still as elegant as ever, but this old man has one foot in the coffin. Xiao Dao looked at the old man in black robe. Even you have sided with them. The old man in black robe said softly. In order to live longer, Miss Xiao Dao, for the next few days, you and this old man will stay in this pawn shop, and neither of us will do anything. What do you think? Chapter 11:15. In the pawn shop, Xiao Dao was silent. Xiao Dao's expression was calm, and it was impossible to tell whether he was happy or angry. She didn't make a move either, because she knew that it was meaningless to do so. Based on her current abilities, she couldn't do anything to the old man in front of her, and this old man couldn't do anything to her either. After a long silence, Xiao Dao said softly, Zhangchen, you once contributed greatly to this universe. Back then, Tendo remembered your kindness and took the initiative to help you. The old man suddenly said, Not enough. Xiao Dao glanced at Zhangchen. Zhangchen chuckled. Miss Xiao Dao, I helped Tendo seal the righteous gods all those years ago. During that battle, I was heavily injured. This injury wasn't just a flesh wound. It was an injury to my very essence. I'm already very lucky to be able to live until now. As he spoke, he smiled and said, Tendo helped me. She doesn't owe me anything, and I don't owe her anything either. Xiao Dao sighed. Do you know that by stopping me today, you will have to bear some karma? Zhangchen nodded. I know. Therefore, I only promise to stop Miss Xiao Dao. As long as Lady Xiao Dao doesn't make a move, we can live in peace. After the matter is settled, this old man will apologize to Lady Xiao Dao. Xiao Dao did not say anything else. She turned her head and looked outside the pawnshop. There was a trace of worry in her eyes. She had underestimated him. Since the other party could send someone to stop her, he must have a way to stop the sword sect. How was Yi Xian going to face it? In the boundless underground city, a one-legged woman was washing clothes by the river. The one-legged woman suddenly turned her head. Not too far away from her was a woman wielding a black saber. Black blade envoy. The woman with the black blade looked at the one-legged woman. In the next moment, she suddenly slashed out with her blade. Great desolate kingdom. Arrow stood in front of the main hall. Not far from her stood a woman with a black sword in her hand. Beside the woman with the black sword was a birdman. The birdman held 2 lightning hammers in his hands, ready to strike. Arrow looked at the two. Since you're here, then, all of you shall stay here. With that, the sword in her hand suddenly unsheathed. The Wu clan. Amu arrived at the Wu clan's ancestral hall. Inside the ancestral hall, all the ancestors of the Wu clan were enshrined. There was another person in the ancestral shrine. The former high priest of the Wu clan. The former high priest knelt in front of a memorial tablet in silence. Amu walked to the side of the previous high priest and said softly, "Priest Lin Xian." Lin Xian opened her eyes. "I sense many powerful auras." Amu nodded. "I know." Lin Xian looked at Amu. "Do you regret it?" Amu shook his head. "No regrets." Lin Xian smiled and said, "Why?" After all, the Wu clan hadn't obtained any benefit since they became friends with Yi Xian. But now, the Wu clan is going to use the entire clan's strength to block the disaster for him. Amu said softly, "He is my wizard servant, and also one of the Wu clan." Lin Xian looked at Amu and said nothing. Amu smiled and said, "Priest Lin Xian, I did choose him at first because I wanted to use him to help my Wu clan. Of course, it's still the same now. I've never hidden this from him." Lin Xian said, "Your original intention was for the Wu clan, but now the Wu clan might be destroyed because of him." Amu suddenly asked, "Has he ever let down my Wu clan?" Lin Xian shook her head. Amu said with a smile, "Since he didn't disappoint me, my Wu clan, how can my Wu clan let him down? All members of my Wu clan share blessings and difficulties together. Today, let alone him. If it were any other Wu clan member, even if it were an ordinary citizen of the Wu clan, I would not give up on him." Lin Xian looked at Amu. After a long time she said softly, "I hope your decision is right." Amu said in a deep voice, "Priest Lin Xian, I need your help." Lin Xian said with a smile, "I haven't left." Hearing this, Amu smiled. Amu turned to look at the ancestral tokens of the Wu clan. She slowly knelt down and said softly, "Ancestors, if you are still alive, come out and help when the battle begins. I kowtow to you." After saying that, she kowtowed. Lin Xian. The Tian clan. A Qian stood on top of a city wall. Behind her were Hao Tian, Abzang and Xing Zhantian. Hao Tian glanced at a Qian, wanting to say something but hesitated. A Qian said softly, "Just say what you want to say." Hao Tian sighed, "God teacher, I feel that there's no need for us to get involved in Yi Xian's muddy waters. I finally understood it. There are too many troublesome matters on this fellow's body." Gu Zhantian nodded. "That Shen Gong and the Dark World will definitely not let this matter rest. Although there's the sword sect, there's really no need for us to risk our lives for that Yi Xian." Hao Tian looked at a Qian. "What does God teacher think?" A Qian laughed. "The study room." Hao Tian frowned. "What does God teacher mean?" A Qian said softly, "The people above want Yi Xian's study room." "What does this mean?" "It means that the study room is not simple." Gu Zhantian suddenly asked, "Are we going to seize that study room?" A Qian shook his head. "That study room is not something that we can possess." As she spoke, she turned and glanced at the three of them. Based on the current situation, Yi Xian and the Prophet are closely related. And the reason why the Prophet left that study room behind was to deal with the fifth dimension calamity. We have two choices. Either we seize that study room, or we help Yi Xian protect that study room. As for seizing that study room, we don't have the ability to do so. If we help Shen Gong and the rest, Don't forget one person. Hao Tian frowned. Who? A Qian said softly. Tendo. Tendo. Hearing this, the expressions of the people present changed. A Qian said softly, Shengong and those living beings from the dark world, they were all sealed by Tendo. If we stand on Shengong's side, it would be the same as standing against Tendo. Hao Tian suddenly said, but up until now, Tendo still hasn't appeared. A Qian nodded, so we can only gamble. As she spoke, she glanced at the three of them. I stand on Yi Xian's side. Abzang suddenly said, I also stand on Yi Xian's side. Hao Tian and Gu Zhantian looked at Abzang. Abzang softly said, in this situation, it's not impossible for us to stand on our own. However, everyone must understand one thing. The fifth dimension calamity is about to arrive, and there are people above interfering. In this situation, what if the people above want us to submit in the future? At that time, who will help us? Moreover, when the fifth dimension calamity arrives, does our celestial race have the ability to withstand it? We must choose an ally. And this ally, Yi Xian, is our best choice. Because right now he needs our help. If we choose the people above, we might be used as cannon fodder. Hao Tian solemnly said. But now that the woman behind Yi Xian has already left, if we help him, if the people above obstruct the sword sect, we won't have any chance of winning. A Qian smiled. That's why we have to bet. Hao Tian bitterly smiled. If we lose, we'll be finished. A Qian softly said, in any case, the fifth dimension calamity is about to arrive. Whether it happens sooner or later, there's not much difference. As she spoke, she turned and looked at the horizon. Pass down my order, all the experts of the celestial race are to head to the Wu clan, don't leave a single one behind. Apart from this, if you have any trump cards, don't hold anything back. This time, we will let the world see the strength of our celestial race. Even if we die, we will blossom with the most magnificent light. Hao Tian and the other two slightly bowed. Understood. As they finished speaking, the three quietly retreated. Very quickly, all the experts of the celestial race rushed to the Wu clan. At the peak of a certain mountain, a woman stood there with a sword in her hand. She wore a light blue dress, and her beautiful hair fluttered in the wind. The woman stood at the peak of the mountain, proudly standing there. Thousands of feet behind her, there was a sword hanging in the sky. Below the sword, several huge palaces could be faintly seen. Around the palaces, sword cries could be heard from time to time. And in front of one of the palaces, there was a statue. The statue was of a man wearing a green robe. On the shoulder of the man wearing a green robe, there was a little white guy. Of course, this was also a statue. The man wearing a green robe had his right hand behind his back. He looked at the horizon, his eyes filled with a trace of aggressiveness. And on his shoulder, the little white guy's head was gently leaning against him. Its eyes were slightly closed, as if it was sleeping soundly. At this moment, a sword cry suddenly resounded from the distant horizon. Wherever the sword cry passed, the space seemed to violently shake like waves. It was incomparably shocking. Hearing this sword cry, the woman standing at the peak of the mountain suddenly turned her head. At this moment, a middle-aged man appeared in front of her. This person was Lu Yunxian. Lu Yunxian said in a deep voice, "Senior sister, those guys are making a big move." The woman's brows raised slightly. Have they grown bolder? Lu Yunxian spoke in a low voice. They're probably trying to keep us busy. When she spoke up to this point, she paused for a moment and said, Gunya said that a power from the higher dimensions is targeting little junior brother. They've probably made such a big move this time because they intend to keep us busy. Little junior brother is probably in danger. Little junior brother. The woman's expression changed slightly when she heard these words. Lu Yunxian gazed at the woman. Should we send someone to get little junior brother over here? It's truly extremely dangerous for him to be all alone there. The woman shook her head. He said that he'll wait for that fellow to come over himself. Lu Yunxian hesitated to speak. Right at this moment, another ray of light appeared here, and it was Gunya. Gunya spoke in a low voice. The sword dimension is in danger. Lu Yunxian frowned slightly. It's in danger? Gunya nodded and spoke in a low voice. They aren't as wretched as they were in the past, and they're attacking the sword dimension madly. As she spoke, she gazed at the woman before her. The woman suddenly said, Send out my order. All disciples of the sword sect are to head out to battle. As soon as she finished speaking, she transformed into a ray of light that vanished into the distant horizon. On the other hand, countless rays of light shot into the sky from the sword sect, and in an instant, the entire sky was covered in sword light. The Void Dimension. On this day, a middle-aged man suddenly appeared in the sky above Shaman City, and it was none other than Shen Gong. Shen Gong looked at Shaman City below him and smiled. No one will come to save you today. P.S. Even if all of you call me shameless, I still ask for tickets. Chapter 11:16. Shaman City. Amu lifted her head to look at Shen Gong. At that moment, a man suddenly appeared beside Shen Gong. Wu Tian. Behind Wu Tian stood 11 powerful warriors, and all of them were rulers. Besides that, there were also 10 giant dark spirits and hundreds of dark spirits of Een. Behind them, there were 10 gigantic black relocation runes, and an endless stream of dark spirits surged out from those relocation runes. In just a moment, the sky above Shaman City was filled with these dark spirits. Below, a Qian suddenly asked beside Amu, "Is there any news about Arrow and Xiao Dao?" Amu nodded. A Qian whispered, "Looks like they have stopped them." Amu nodded. "We can only rely on ourselves." As she spoke, she lifted her head to look at the sky and smiled. "I didn't expect that we would have to live and die together after fighting so fiercely in the past." A Qian smiled. "Indeed, I didn't expect that." The two women looked at each other and smiled. "In the sky," Wu Tian suddenly said, "Great priest of the Wu clan, the dark world can give you one last chance. If you..." Amu suddenly looked at Wu Tian and smiled. "If you want to fight, then fight. If you want to fight, then fight." Wu Tian narrowed his eyes. He was about to speak when a powerful presence suddenly swept out from the tomb in the distance. Everyone in the surroundings gazed at the tomb in succession. A man walked out from the entrance of the tomb. It was Yi Xian. When she saw Yi Xian, Yi Ling immediately rushed over. She ran to Yi Xian and stopped. "You broke through?" Yi Xian smiled. "Yes." Rebirth Realm. Yi Xian took a deep breath and clenched his fists. A sword whistle suddenly shot into the sky from his body. The sword whistle shook the world. In the sky, Wu Tian looked at Yi Xian and asked softly, "He is Yi Xian?" Shen Gong nodded. "Yes." Wu Tian chuckled and said, "Yi Xian, we won't kill you. As long as you hand over that study room, we can let you go. What do you think?" Study room. Yi Xian opened his palm, and the Prophet's bookhouse appeared in his hand. Looking at the bookhouse in his hand, he smiled and said, "It seems that this thing is really not simple." Wu Tian smiled and said, "If you don't hand it over, you and the people around you will die." Yi Xian pulled Yi Ling behind him. He walked towards Wu Tian and said with a smile, "How about this, we fight one-on-one. If you win, this thing will belong to you. If I win, you can leave. What do you think?" Skyless eyes narrowed. "Are you sure?" Yi Xian smiled and said, "A swordsman never goes back on his word." At this moment, Shen Gong suddenly said, "Absolutely not." Wu Tian looked at Shen Gong. "Do you think I can't beat him?" Shen Gong said in a deep voice, "Wu Tian, Yi Xian is as cunning as a mouse. His strength is far inferior to yours, but he wants to challenge you. Do you think it's normal?" Wu Tian was silent. Shen Gong said again, "How many people have died from their own carelessness since ancient times? Moreover, you are now just a soul body, and your strength is far less than before. Now, if he plays dirty tricks, you will be in danger." Wu Tian looked at Yi Xian not far in front of him. He smiled and said, "You are right, but I still want to fight him." Confidence. Shen Gong's face was gloomy. Being challenged by such a young swordsman, how could Wu Tian refuse to fight? Not to mention Wu Tian, if Yi Xian challenged him, he would not refuse. The pride of the strong. The confidence of the strong. Wu Tian looked at Yi Xian in the sky and said with a smile, "Come, let me see how monstrous you are." Yi Xian laughed and suddenly disappeared from where he was. In the field, a ray of sword light flashed past. At this moment, Yi Xian's speed was no less than 5 times faster than before. Rebirth Realm. After reaching the Rebirth Realm, Yi Xian's sword had naturally been greatly improved. In the distance, Wu Tian flicked his sleeve and a black wave surged out. Boom! Yi Xian's sword light was forcibly shattered, but at this moment, Yi Xian himself had already appeared in front of him. Wu Qian frowned slightly. Space. This sword, Yi Xian used the Space Dao Law. Wu Qian's fingers clamped, and this clamp directly caught Yi Xian's sword. But at this moment, a sword suddenly appeared in Yi Xian's left hand. The soul-suppressing sword. Wu Qian's expression instantly changed when the soul-suppressing sword appeared. At this moment, he knew why Yi Xian had challenged him to a one-on-one battle. The soul. As soon as the soul-suppressing sword appeared, Wu Qian knew that it countered the soul. Wu Qian didn't dare resist this attack, and his figure trembled as he retreated explosively. Right at this moment, the soul-suppressing sword suddenly vanished. The Space Dao Law. In the distance, the soul-suppressing sword silently appeared above Wu Qian. In the next moment, it trembled violently, and a powerful force locked onto Wu Qian. Wu Qian's pupils suddenly constricted when he was locked onto by the soul-suppressing sword, and then he clenched his fists tightly before smashing them upwards. Bang! These two punches blasted out, and two powerful forces of the soul blasted towards the soul-suppressing sword like a wave. However, these two powerful forces of the soul were directly absorbed by the soul-suppressing sword as soon as they came into contact with it. At the same time, the soul-suppressing sword stabbed straight down. Wu Qian's pupils constricted when he saw this, and he wanted to flee. Meanwhile, Yi Xian suddenly spoke softly. Soul fixation. As soon as he finished speaking, a mysterious force of the soul directly locked onto Wu Qian's soul. Meanwhile, the soul-suppressing sword had already arrived 5 meters above Wu Qian's head. At this moment, Wu Qian panicked. Wu Qian suddenly roared furiously. Attack! As soon as he finished speaking, an afterimage suddenly flashed by. Bang! The soul-suppressing sword was blasted flying. In the distance, Yi Xian gestured with his right hand, and the soul-suppressing sword fell into his grasp. He looked towards the distant Wu Qian, and a figure appeared in front of him. It was the High Ambassador. Yi Xian smiled. What happened to a one-on-one battle? The High Ambassador glanced at Yi Xian, and then he looked at Wu Qian. Arrogance will get you killed. Wu Qian's expression was gloomy, but he was still somewhat unconvinced. If Yi Xian didn't have the soul-suppressing sword, Yi Xian definitely wouldn't be his match. At this moment, Yi Xian suddenly laughed. I won't use this soul-suppressing sword to fight you one-on-one. Do you want to fight? Wu Qian looked at Yi Xian, and his eyes narrowed. Just as he was about to speak, the High Ambassador suddenly said, Why should we fight you one-on-one? Yi Xian looked at the High Ambassador, and the High Ambassador smiled. Yi Xian, our strength is crushing you right now, so why should we fight you one-on-one? Yi Xian suddenly disappeared on the spot. 4 sword beams suddenly appeared in front of the High Ambassador. It was extremely fast. Chi. However, this sword that was as fast as lightning slashed empty air. The sword beam disappeared, and the High Ambassador had already retreated 100 feet away. Before he stopped, his body suddenly became illusory. In the distance, an afterimage quietly appeared in front of Yi Xian. Yi Xian narrowed his eyes and stabbed with his sword. Bang! Yi Xian retreated hundreds of feet in an instant. As soon as he stopped, the space behind him split open, and 2 pitch-black chains suddenly flew out. These 2 pitch-black chains instantly locked Yi Xian's arms. At this moment, the executing heaven sword in his hand suddenly flew out and slashed at the 2 chains. Bang! The 2 chains shattered with a loud bang. Yi Xian tapped his right foot lightly against the ground, and then his figure transformed into an afterimage that vanished on the spot. Hiss! The sound of something tearing resounded. At practically the exact same moment, the High Ambassador suddenly vanished on the spot. Bang! A deafening explosion suddenly resounded in the sky. Yi Xian felt his vision blur, and he instinctively raised his sword to block it. As he did so, a powerful force passed through his sword and into his body. Bang! Yi Xian retreated repeatedly. During the process, he opened his palm, and then the executing heaven sword suddenly slashed at a strange angle. Hiss! The sound of something tearing resounded. At the same time, an afterimage was blasted over 100 m back. As soon as Yi Xian stopped moving, the executing heaven sword flew back into his grasp. Suddenly, an afterimage appeared in front of him. At the same time, a ray of cold light slashed towards his throat. Yi Xian didn't dodge at all and just allowed it to strike his throat. Hiss! The skin on his throat suddenly split open slightly, and the afterimage in front of Yi Xian instantly retreated by 300 m. This shadow was the High Ambassador. After the High Ambassador stopped moving, there was a gash on his chest, and blood was flowing from it. The High Ambassador raised his head to gaze at Yi Xian, who stood nearby, and he spoke softly, "Your cultivation technique is truly unique. It was actually able to resist this attack of mine." Yi Xian rubbed his throat while he felt a slight lingering fear in his heart. Fortunately, he'd activated the undying body at the critical moment. Otherwise, his inextinguishable gold wouldn't have been able to resist the High Ambassador's attack at all. Moreover, even the inextinguishable gold hadn't been able to completely resist the High Ambassador's attack. The High Ambassador gazed at Yi Xian, a formidable physical body and a formidable cultivation in the sword Dao. "Needless to say, you really are a monstrous genius." As he spoke, he opened his palm, and a small golden sword suddenly appeared in his hand. There were some cracks on it. Wu Tian suddenly spoke softly, "It's time to end this." As soon as he finished speaking, he pointed with his finger, and the small golden sword emanated a powerful ray of light that shot forward. Yi Xian seemed as if he was facing a formidable enemy, and his expression was extremely solemn. However, he actually didn't dodge when the small golden sword appeared in front of him, and he allowed it to stab his chest. Moreover, the sword entered his body as soon as it came into contact with his body. Everyone in the surroundings was stunned when they witnessed this scene. What's going on? Meanwhile, a powerful aura suddenly swept out from within Yi Xian. Shen Gong spoke fiercely when he witnessed this scene. "He's devoured it. He's devoured that divine artifact." Devoured. When he heard Shen Gong, the High Ambassador slowly clenched his fists. In the distance, Yi Xian suddenly spread his arms open, and a powerful force surged out from within him like a tidal wave. In an instant, the space around him started trembling like waves. Yi Xian took a deep breath. How comfortable! It was truly too comfortable when he absorbed it. It was better than cultivating arduously for a few dozen years. The High Ambassador stared fixedly at Yi Xian. "You can devour swords." Yi Xian blinked. "I don't think so. Why don't you try devouring another divine artifact?" The High Ambassador suddenly said, "Kill. Don't leave a single person alive." As soon as he finished speaking, the experts from the dark world behind him instantly charged down towards Shaman City below. Yi Xian's expression gradually turned ferocious when he witnessed this scene. Chapter 11:17. Right at the moment the dark creatures rushed towards Shaman City, a moose suddenly appeared beside Yi Xian. "I need some purple smoke later." Yi Xian looked at Amu, and Amu slowly closed her eyes. She held the black staff in her hands and began chanting quickly. Gradually, numerous black pillars of light suddenly shot into the sky from Shaman City. Boom! 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 In an instant, the countless dark creatures in the sky were reduced to minced meat by the black pillars of light. At the same time, an endless amount of black runic symbols suddenly floated up from Shaman City. Each of those black runic symbols contained incredible power. The moment the dark creatures touched those black runic symbols, they exploded. Their souls were destroyed. The Wu clan's rune. At that moment, Amu did not hold back. She brought out the Wu clan's rune to protect the clan. Without Xiao Dao, the sword sect, and arrow, the Wu clan could no longer hold back. They had to use all their trump cards. At the moment the Wu clan's rune appeared, 36 powerful warriors suddenly rushed out from the city. The 36 generals of the Wu clan. Besides them, there were also the 12 generals of the Wu clan. Behind them were the countless powerful warriors of the Wu clan. The moment the Wu clan's rune appeared in the sky, the dark creatures were instantly dealt a heavy blow. However, there were just too many of them. At that moment, the ambassador swung his right hand lightly. Break the rune! The moment he finished speaking, the countless dark creatures behind him suddenly disappeared from the spot. When they reappeared, they were already in Shaman City. Very soon, explosions rang out in Shaman City. At that moment, Amu's face instantly turned pale. Yi Xian quickly held on to Amu. Amu lifted her head to look at the sky and slowly closed her eyes. Explode! The moment she finished speaking, the black runic symbols in the sky suddenly exploded one after another like fireworks. Shrill screams of pain rose non-stop in the sky. At this moment, Amu's face had also turned somewhat pale. In the sky, the ambassador frowned slightly, and he suddenly disappeared on the spot. Meanwhile, Yi Xian, who was by a Mu's side, disappeared as well. A wisp of sword light cut through the sky. Boom! The envoy was pushed back by Yi Xian's sword. The High Ambassador took a look at Yi Xian. At this moment, Yi Xian's immortal body was still there. He turned to look at Shen Gong and said, "I'll hold him back, you go and stop that woman." After saying that, he directly rushed towards Yi Xian. After the High Ambassador disappeared, Shen Gong looked down at a Mu. He opened his palm and a tiny water dragon suddenly appeared in his palm. Shen Gong looked down at a Mu. He suddenly blasted downwards. Rumble! A water dragon suddenly descended from the sky. Meanwhile, Yi Ling appeared in front of a Mu. She opened her palm, and the Taiji shield suddenly flew up and blocked the water dragon. A ferocious smile appeared on the corners of Shen Gong's mouth, and he directly charged at Yi Ling. Yi Ling's face was expressionless. She was just about to attack when a Mu suddenly said, "Don't attack you." Meanwhile, Yi Ling had already charged forward. In the sky, Yi Ling suddenly clenched her right hand into a fist, and then she blasted it forward. A ball of dark light flickered on her fist, and then an enormous water dragon arrived in front of her. Boom! With this punch, the water dragon exploded, and Shen Gong himself was sent flying hundreds of meters back. Seeing this scene, Mu, who was below, was stunned. Yi Ling is so good at fighting? Shen Gong was stunned as well. Yi Xian's younger sister is so good at fighting? In the sky, Yi Ling opened her palm, and an azure spike suddenly appeared in her hand. As for the Taiji shield in her left hand, Shen Gong stared fixedly at Yi Ling. He was just about to attack again when a spear suddenly tore through the sky. Shen Gong suddenly turned around, waved his palm, and a water shield appeared in front of him. Bang! The spear struck the water shield, and it trembled violently and cracked. Shen Gong looked up into the distance, and a woman was walking over slowly. It was Zhang Wenxiu. Zhang Wenxiu glanced at Yi Xian and said softly, "The Rebirth Realm. How fast?" She was still a little bit away from the Rebirth Realm. Shen Gong glanced at Zhang Wenxiu, and a wisp of disdain arose on the corners of his mouth. He was just about to attack when a ray of light suddenly slashed down from the sky. Shen Gong's eyes narrowed slightly when he saw the ray of light. An ordinary sword. Shen Gong didn't dare be careless. He blocked it, stomped his right foot, and a body of water appeared. At the moment the body of water appeared, the ray of light instantly slowed down. But in the next moment, it suddenly sped up. Shen Gong's expression changed, and he blocked it with his arm. Bang! A ray of water exploded, and Shen Gong retreated by over 1 kilometer. Moreover, there was a little girl standing where he was standing just now. Xueqi. There were 2 other women by Xueqi's side, and it was Enlancio and Lian Wanli. The 3 of them were gathered together. Xueqi gazed at Shen Gong with an expressionless face, and the sword in her hand trembled slightly as she accumulated strength. Shen Gong glanced at them and frowned slightly. "Where did all of you come from?" Xueqi suddenly vanished on the spot. Hiss! A ray of light from a sword tore through the battlefield. In the distance, Shen Gong's eyes narrowed slightly. He suddenly pointed forward with a finger, and in an instant, countless streams of water shot out from within his body. In an instant, the space in a circular area of a few thousands of feet around him was transformed into a body of water, and this body of water just happened to drown Xueqi. But in the next moment, a ray of light from a sword suddenly tore through the body of water, and in the blink of an eye, a few afterimages appeared in front of Shen Gong. Shen Gong's expression changed, and he swiftly smashed his fist forward. Bang! This punch directly shattered the space before him. Hiss! 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 Numerous ripping sounds resounded incessantly from within the shattered space, and the light from a sword swept through the battlefield. In the distance, Enlancio was just about to attack. Meanwhile, Zhang Wenxiu suddenly pointed downwards. "Go and help." Enlancio looked down. The dark living beings were slaughtering madly within Shaman City. When she witnessed this scene, Enlancio didn't hesitate any longer, and she charged down directly. Lian Wanli followed closely behind her. On the other hand, Yi Ling stood on guard by a Mu's side. In the sky, the Wu clan's grand formation was gradually vanishing. However, the dark living beings had paid an extremely terrible price. In next to no time, the Wu clan's grand formation was gradually vanishing. Meanwhile, countless dark living beings charged down towards the Wu clan. Right at this moment, a ray of white light suddenly appeared in the distant sky. The white light covered the sky, and then it surged towards the dark living beings in the sky above the Wu clan at an extremely swift speed. The Tian clan. At this moment, the Tian clan had attacked. They'd used a grand formation as well. In the middle of that white light stood a woman. It was a Qian. A Qian's eyes were closed slightly while countless white runic symbols fluttered around her. If one took a closer look, one would notice that there were countless swords that were fine like a cow's hair amidst the white light. When he saw the white light, the expression of the ambassador who was fighting Yi Xian instantly turned extremely unsightly. He turned to look at Wu Tian and said fiercely, "Does your dark world still intend to hold back at a time like this?" Wu Tian hesitated for a moment when he heard the ambassador, and then he turned to look at the teleportation formation. Meanwhile, numerous powerful auras suddenly swept out from within the teleportation formation, and it didn't take long for a few dozen dark living beings to charge out with spears in their hands. The Dark Army. When the Dark Army charged out, the expressions of Amu and the others instantly changed. Exactly how many experts are there in the dark world? A Qian's expression was extremely gloomy as well. After a moment of silence, she suddenly roared furiously, "All Tian clan experts, fight!" As soon as she finished speaking, countless Tian clan experts charged out from behind her. Fight to the death! At this moment, no matter if it was the Wu clan, the Tian clan, or the variant beasts brought by the variant beast scripture, all of them were fighting to the death. However, no matter if it was in terms of combat strength or numbers, they were far inferior to the dark world. Thus, as soon as the two sides clashed, the Wu clan and the Tian clan were directly suppressed. The expression of Yi Xian, who was fighting with the emissary, also changed. He dodged backwards, trying to widen the distance between him and the emissary. However, the emissary did not give him the chance and attacked him like a madman. Yi Xian frowned slightly. He didn't dare be careless against the ambassador. Even though he had the undying body, it had a time limit. At this moment, the emissary suddenly rushed in front of Yi Xian. With a wave of his right hand, a pitch-black chain whipped towards Yi Xian's head. Wherever this pitch-black chain passed, the space immediately turned into nothingness. Yi Xian didn't dodge, and he slashed forward with the executing heaven sword. Hiss! This sword slashed the pitch-black chain apart. After smashing the chain, Yi Xian leaped into the air. Holding the sword with both hands, he slashed at the ambassador. The ambassador didn't take Yi Xian's sword head-on. Instead, he dodged backwards and retreated 100 feet, pulling away from Yi Xian. Yi Xian's sword slashed through the air. In the distance, the ambassador looked at the sword in Yi Xian's hand with a trace of seriousness in his eyes. Yi Xian's sword discourse arena was sharp, and Yi Xian was at the second stage of the mortal sword. It was still a great threat to him, so he didn't take Yi Xian's sword head-on. Yi Xian looked down. When he saw the situation below, his face darkened. The situation below was becoming more and more disadvantageous for the Wu clan and the Tian clan. Whether it was the Tian clan or the Wu clan, it could be said that they had suffered heavy losses. At this moment, a powerful aura suddenly came from the teleportation array behind Wu Tian. Very quickly, countless dark creatures rushed out from the pitch-black spatial black hole. Seeing the endless stream of dark creatures, whether it was the experts of the Tian clan or the Wu clan, they were all in despair. There were simply too many of them. Actually, this was normal. After all, the dark world was an existence that dared to challenge Tendo back then. At this moment, Amu suddenly looked at Yi Xian and grinned. "This time, I'm afraid we're really going to be gone." Yi Xian looked at Amu. Amu chuckled, "I really don't regret choosing you to be a shaman's attendant. If there's a next life, we'll meet again." As soon as she finished speaking, her body suddenly ignited, burning her lifespan. Amu raised her head and looked at the endless dark creatures. "With my lifespan, sacrifice the formation." As soon as she finished speaking, an illusory circular formation suddenly appeared above her head. At this moment, Amu's body turned illusory, and her face was as pale as a sheet of paper. Seeing this scene, the eyes of countless Wu clan experts almost popped out of their sockets. A taboo formation. With the appearance of this formation, streams of powerful auras suddenly appeared in the sky. Yi Xian, who was in the sky, was stunned the moment he saw Amu's body burning up. In the next moment, Yi Xian suddenly roared, "No!" At this moment, he really panicked. He was afraid of losing a moo. Yi Xian charged downwards like a madman, but the ambassador blocked him. Not only that, but there were also over a dozen dark creatures blocking in front of Yi Xian. Below, a moo looked at Yi Xian who was charging towards her and chuckled, "It's really goodbye forever." As soon as she finished speaking, her body and soul began to burn. In the sky, Shin Gong suddenly laughed maniacally. "Yi Xian, are you desperate? We just have more people. Haha. Aren't you good at calling people? Call for help. You mother****, call for help for me." In the distance, Yi Xian's eyes suddenly turned blood red. Bloodline power. At this moment, a jade-like hand suddenly pressed lightly on his shoulder. In an instant, the bloodline power in his body receded like the tide. At the same time, the executing heaven sword in Yi Xian's hand suddenly trembled violently, and the sound of the sword reverberated continuously, shooting straight into the sky. P.S. I'm too ashamed to ask for votes, so I'll send a red packet to everyone. You just need to vote for a monthly vote, so don't forget. Chapter 11:18. Suddenly, the surroundings fell silent. A woman in a white robe stood in front of Yi Xian. Her left hand was behind her back, and her right hand was placed on Yi Xian's shoulder. On the waist of the white-robed woman hung a wine gourd. Meanwhile, the woman moved her fingers slightly, and the executing heaven sword in Yi Xian's hand suddenly flew out. In the next moment, it transformed into a ray of light that arrived above a moo's head. Bang! The flames on a moo's body instantly vanished without a trace. Everyone was looking at the woman in a white robe. Yi Xian was looking at the woman in a white robe as well. "Who are you?" The woman in front of him was slightly familiar, but he couldn't remember who she was. The white-robed woman looked at Yi Xian. She just looked at him. Right at this moment, the divine craftsman suddenly said, "Where did you come from?" The woman turned to look at Shin Gong. "You want to kill him?" Shin Gong's eyes narrowed slightly. "So what if I do?" In the next moment, the woman in a white robe vanished on the spot. In the blink of an eye, the woman had appeared in front of Shin Gong. Before Shin Gong could react, she'd grabbed him by the throat. At this moment, everyone was stunned. She subdued Shin Gong with a single move? Everyone was petrified. Shin Gong's eyes were wide open, and they were filled with disbelief. I was subdued with a single move? I can't fight back? At this moment, Shin Gong's mind was blank. In the distance, Wu Tian and the High Ambassador's expressions became unprecedentedly solemn. Especially the High Ambassador. At this moment, the High Ambassador was extremely shocked. Although Shen Gong's strength was slightly inferior to his, he was still one of the strongest experts in the world. He was subdued by this woman with a single move? Didn't they say that Yi Xian's strongest backer was the woman in a white dress? Who is this woman? Yi Xian was also a little confused. Who was this woman who had just come out? She's a little fierce. Below, a moo blinked. Who is this sister? A Qian appeared beside a moo and looked at a moo. You don't know either? A moo shook his head. I don't know. After a brief silence, a Qian said, Just how many people are behind this fellow? As she said that, she looked at Shen Gong and the others. I suddenly feel that they are a little pitiful. A moo. In the sky. The white-robed woman looked at Shen Gong in front of her and suddenly clenched her fist. Boom. Shen Gong's physical body was directly crushed, but his soul was not killed by the white-robed woman. Instead, she trapped it with a wisp of sword light. Inside the sword light, Shen Gong was extremely shocked, because he realized that he didn't have the slightest ability to resist. The white-robed woman turned around and walked in front of Yi Xian. At this moment, the ambassador in the distance suddenly cried out, You're a clone! Doppelganger! Everyone was petrified when they heard the ambassador's words. Doppelganger? Such a powerful person is actually a doppelganger? Shen Gong, who was trapped by the swordlight, was petrified as well. His face was filled with disbelief. The woman in the white robe ignored the emissary and walked up to Yi Xian. At this moment, the executing heaven's sword flew up to her. The woman in the white robe did not look at it. She just looked at Yi Xian. Yi Xian hesitated for a moment. Senior, you are? He was puzzled by the woman who had appeared before him, because he really didn't know who she was. However, she looked slightly familiar, but he couldn't recall where. Right at this moment, 2 streams of clear tears suddenly flowed down from the white-robed woman's eyes. She was crying. Yi Xian was stunned. Why was she crying? Everyone in the surroundings looked at each other. How could such a powerful woman cry? The white-robed woman gently touched Yi Xian's cheek with her right hand. It's a pity that they couldn't see you. Yi Xian was puzzled. The white-robed woman continued. They suffered too. Of course she suffered the most. For you, she was willing to go against the whole world. If it wasn't for her. Yi Xian said softly. A woman in a plain dress. The white-robed woman nodded. Yi Xian was silent for a long time. Then you are? The white-robed woman looked at Yi Xian. What did you call her? Yi Xian said softly. Qing-er. The white-robed woman smiled. Then you can also call me Qing-er. Hearing this, Yi Xian's expression changed. You're the owner of the executing heaven sword. At this moment, the executing heaven sword trembled as if in response. The white-robed woman looked at the executing heaven sword. She opened her palm and the executing heaven sword appeared in her hand. Boom! A powerful sword intent suddenly shot up from the executing heaven sword. Some dark creatures that couldn't dodge in time were directly turned into ashes. Seeing this scene, the ambassador and the others in the distance had ugly expressions. This woman is also a swordsman? The white-robed woman looked at Yi Xian and placed the sword in Yi Xian's hand. Treat it well. Yi Xian looked at the white-robed woman. You're just a clone? The white-robed woman nodded. My main body encountered something along the way. Main body. Yi Xian's eyelids twitched. This Qing-er's strength was probably heaven-defying. At this moment the ambassador suddenly said, How should I address you, Your Excellency? The white-robed woman turned to look at the ambassador. Without a word, she immediately threw a punch. The ambassador's expression changed. He raised his arms to block the attack. Countless black rays suddenly condensed into a shield in front of him. However, the shield instantly shattered. At the same time, he was sent flying backward. When the ambassador stopped, his physical body disappeared, leaving only his soul. Not only that, but his soul also became illusory at this moment. Seeing this, Wu Tian's face was filled with horror. His hands were trembling. Defeating the ambassador with a single punch? Who was this woman? Wu Tian suddenly looked at the imprisoned Shen Gong in the distance and roared, Didn't you say that there's no one behind him? Shen Gong's eyes were dull. No one knew what he was thinking. The white-robed woman, right? The ambassador who was left with only his soul was panicking. One punch. He couldn't even take a single punch from this woman. The white-robed woman looked at the ambassador. She was about to attack when Yi Xian hurriedly handed the soul-suppressing sword to the white-robed woman. Use this sword to absorb him. This ambassador was very powerful. If the soul-suppressing sword could absorb him, it might be able to improve again. The white-robed woman gripped the soul-suppressing sword and casually swung it. In the distance, the ambassador's expression changed drastically. He retreated like a madman, trying to escape. After that punch, he knew that the woman in front of him was far stronger than him. Undefeatable. Therefore, the ambassador's first thought was to retreat. However, he had underestimated the woman before him. The moment he retreated, the soul-suppressing sword stabbed into his body. It was so fast that he couldn't react. Boom! As soon as the soul-suppressing sword entered the ambassador's body, it absorbed him. Wu Tian roared furiously when he witnessed this scene. He roared, Retreat! As soon as he finished speaking, he turned around and entered the teleportation formation. As for the living beings in the surroundings, they retreated explosively as well. Suddenly, the white-robed woman punched once more. Bang! Everyone watched as the space in front of the white-robed woman started to transform into nothingness, and then countless living beings in the darkness perished. A single punch. The expressions of everyone here turned solemn when they witnessed this scene. After all, the white-robed woman's strength was extraordinarily formidable. It could be said that such an expert really possessed the ability to destroy the universe. Suddenly, the white-robed woman gazed at the teleportation formation, and then she smashed her fist forward. A moment of silence ensued before a strand of formidable force suddenly appeared within the teleportation formation. Bang! The teleportation formation suddenly exploded apart. The white-robed woman's face remained expressionless as she smashed her fist forward once more. When she punched out, a fist mark suddenly flashed out from her fist. However, in the next moment, the fist mark disappeared right in front of her. A fist suddenly flew out from a dark expanse of the starry sky in the distance. At the instant it appeared, the dark expanse of the starry sky suddenly started trembling. Meanwhile, a pitch-black hand stretched out from the depths of the starry sky, and then it smashed against the fist. Bang! The pitch-black hand shattered with a bang and transformed into nothingness, whereas the fist shot into the depths of the starry sky. After an instant, bang! The dark expanse of the starry sky suddenly exploded apart. The white-robed woman took a step forward in the sky above Shaman City. She was about to attack once more, but right at this moment, she seemed to have thought of something, and she turned around to look at Yi Xian. Yi Xian asked, "What's wrong?" As he spoke, he was suddenly stunned, because he noticed that the white-robed woman's body was becoming ethereal. The white-robed woman said softly, "When I came here, this clone of mine had to pass through countless galaxies and the dimensional barriers of numerous galaxies and galaxies to get here as soon as possible. Since I attacked just now, this clone of mine is about to disappear." Yi Xian was stunned, and then he quickly asked, "Where's your real body?" The white-robed woman pointed above her head. "A place that's rather far away. When I came here I ran into some things." Yi Xian blinked. "What things?" The white-robed woman didn't answer Yi Xian's question. She seized the air with her right hand, and Yi Xian's world prison pagoda and study room appeared in her hand. As she looked at the study room, she frowned slightly. Yi Xian quickly asked, "What's wrong?" The white-robed woman said softly, "This thing is rather interesting. Keep it well." Yi Xian hesitated for a moment before he said, "You won't disappear now, right?" The white-robed woman nodded. "Why?" Yi Xian looked towards the study room and said in a low voice, "I want to open the study room." Open the study room. He had wanted to do this since a long time ago. He never had the chance before, but now he felt that he had the chance. With the white-robed woman standing guard here, if he opened the study room, there shouldn't be any threat. The white-robed woman looked at Yi Xian and nodded. "You can try." Yi Xian nodded slightly. He took the World Prison Pagoda and very soon, the World Prison Pagoda shrunk under his command, then floated towards the study room. When the World Prison Pagoda landed on the mark of the study room, the entire all-creation bookroom shuddered violently, then it slowly floated up. At that moment, everyone was looking at the study room. In the pawnshop, Xiao Dao suddenly lifted her head and looked outside the pawnshop. She frowned slightly. In the sky above Shaman City, the study room suddenly shuddered violently and a ray of white light surged out. At that moment, a voice came from within. Chapter 11:19. Host strength isn't up to standard, so the study room won't be open for now. Everyone here was stunned when these words drifted out from within the study room. Yi Xian was stunned as well. Host strength isn't up to standard? What the hell is that? The white-robed woman gazed at Yi Xian. "You're not strong enough." Yi Xian blinked, and then he pointed at the study room. "Who's talking inside?" The white-robed woman shook her head. "I don't know." Yi Xian spoke in a low voice. "Can you open it?" The white-robed woman shook her head again. "If my main body was here, then perhaps I would be able to destroy it. But I can't now." "Destroy." Yi Xian's face fell. The white-robed woman smiled. "Why force it when the time isn't right?" Yi Xian thought for a moment, and then he smiled. "That's true." The white-robed woman spoke softly. "I'm going to vanish." Yi Xian gazed at the white-robed woman. The white-robed woman grinned. "I'll come look for you once I'm done. Live well." As she spoke, she seemed to have thought of something, and then she suddenly turned around. A middle-aged man in a luxurious robe was floating in the depths of the starry sky. The man grinned when he saw the woman look over. The white-robed woman suddenly smashed her fist forward. The middle-aged man's eyes narrowed slightly as he raised his arm to block. Bang! The man instantly retreated by over 1 kilometer. It wasn't just that. The man's entire arm split apart to the point his bones could be seen. Moreover, a trace of blood could be seen on the corner of his mouth. Meanwhile, the woman had vanished completely. The man glanced at his arm and said softly, "How strong?" As soon as he finished speaking, he gazed at Yi Xian who was in the distant starry sky. "Looks like we have to re-evaluate you." As soon as he finished speaking, he turned around and left. It didn't take long for the man to appear by a river. A woman in a white dress sat on the other side of the river, and she was roasting fish. The woman glanced at the man and smiled. "Has that ambassador been sacrificed?" The man said softly. "Is it within your expectations?" The woman smiled. "It has nothing to do with me." The man stared at the woman. "Do you really not care about this universe?" The white-dressed woman smiled and said, "Why should I care? Now, all living things have their own thoughts and have their own destiny. Why should I care so much?" As she spoke, she blinked. "I don't care about anything. You won't kill me too, right?" "Kill." The man in luxurious robes fell silent. It wasn't that they didn't have this thought, but the price was too high. The woman in front of him was the supreme Tendo of the fifth dimension. Kill her. Even the higher-ups weren't confident. The man in the luxurious robe suddenly laughed and said, "You must be joking." Tendo said with smile, "I know you won't kill me." The man was curious. "Why?" Tendo gently nibbled on the grilled fish in his hand and then said with a smile, "I'm not stopping you, so why do you want to kill me? Look, I didn't stop you from releasing Shengong and the beings of the dark world." The man looked at the Tendo. "Why didn't you stop him?" Tendo blinked. "Why should I?" The man said in a deep voice, "You are the Tendo of this universe." Tendo smiled and said, "It's nothing. Tendo is not a Tendo. I'm just a member of this universe. Moreover, I've already said it just now. All living things have their own thoughts and have their own destiny. Why should I interfere?" As she spoke, she looked at the man and raised the grilled fish in his hand. "Want to eat grilled fish?" The man looked deeply at the Tendo. Then, he turned around and disappeared. By the river, the woman shook her head and smiled, continuing to grill fish. After a while, the man came to the dark world again. At this moment, the dark world was already shattered. This place had just taken a punch from that woman. The man looked at the shattered dark world around him and his expression gradually became serious. That woman's strength was stronger than he had imagined. If the other party was in her original body, this punch was enough to destroy the entire dark world. Who was that woman? After a long silence, the man walked into the distance. Soon, the man came in front of a black tower. The man looked up at the top of the tower. The tower had already cracked and was in pieces. At this moment, a voice came from the tower. "Do you still want to target that Yi Xian?" The man nodded. "We must get that book house." Inside the tower, the voice said, "Is it possible for us to retreat?" The man looked at the tower and smiled. "Are you afraid?" At this moment, the tower's door suddenly opened and a man in black walked out. This person was the Lord of the dark world. He had once fought with the Tendo. The Lord walked in front of the man. "We have suffered heavy losses." The man said softly, "This is something we did not expect." The Lord looked at the man. "Can you really defeat him? This fellow is an out-and-out powerful second generation." The man smiled. "You seem to have underestimated us." The Lord chuckled. "No, I overestimated you." The man looked at the Lord. "Why didn't the sword sect come? Why didn't the Xiao Dao come out of the pawn shop? Why didn't the Tendo come out?" The Lord said with a smile, "But the fact is that Yi Xian is still alive, and he is doing fine." The man said in a deep voice, "That woman's appearance was something we did not expect." The Lord shook his head and smiled. "We will retreat." The man looked at the Lord. "We blocked the Tendo for you." The Lord looked at the man. "We have suffered heavy losses. Did you not see it?" The man was silent for a long time before saying, "Lord, what is your goal? To exterminate the Tendo? To dominate the fifth dimension?" The Lord smiled. "Can't I?" The man chuckled. "The fifth dimension tribulation is coming. You will all die." The Lord narrowed his eyes. "Weren't you living well before?" The man smiled. "Don't think that you will get lucky. This fifth dimension tribulation is stronger than any of the previous ones." The Lord looked at the man. "Why?" The man said softly, "Because this universe is beyond cure. Even if it is serious, it must be treated. If you think back to the past, you will find that each fifth dimension tribulation is stronger than the last." The Lord was silent. The man smiled and said, "If we leave this universe, do you think that the Tendo will still let your dark world run wild?" The Lord suddenly said, "Why not kill her?" the man asked. Why should I kill her? The Lord looked at the man and did not speak. The man smiled. Lord, let's talk about how to deal with that Yi Xian. He paused and then said, of course, the dark world has suffered heavy losses this time. The higher-ups have also seen it. Therefore, I have brought compensation for you. After saying so, he took out a box. Inside the box was a thumb-sized white medicinal pill. The man smiled. This pill can not only heal your injuries, it can also help you advance further. Hearing this, the man narrowed his eyes. Advance further. Above the ruler tier was the shattering void tier. What was the shattering void tier? This world was a combination of reality and illusion. With the combination of illusion and reality, how many people could see through the maze of the world's origin? See through their own origin? Shattering void tier was to break through the boundary between reality and illusion, shatter all the barriers, and transcend. Above the shattering void tier, there was another tier, and that was return to origin breaking realm. Return to origin breaking realm, one's own cultivation level returned to the origin, breaking through the realm to be reborn. This realm was the realm of this universe. To achieve this, the number of ancient times could be counted on one's fingers. As far as he was concerned, in the entire fifth dimension, perhaps only the Tendo had reached this tier. However, he did not dare to be sure, because the Tendo hid too deeply. And above return to origin breaking realm was the legendary escape realm. Escape from the Great Path but not within the Great Path. This realm, in his eyes, was illusory and somewhat fake. Who could escape from the Great Path? In front of the Lord, the man smiled. Lord, once this matter is over, before the fifth dimension tribulation comes, we will protect you and your dark world. The Lord looked at the man, and the man smiled. To tell you the truth, the higher-ups want one of their own to control this universe. The Lord suddenly asked, how should I address you? The man said, you can call me Venerable Envoy. The Lord looked directly at the Venerable Envoy. Are you from the fifth dimension or the upper realm? The Venerable Envoy smiled. I am from the fifth dimension. The Lord chuckled. But I feel that the higher-ups have ulterior motives. The Venerable Envoy chuckled. So what? At the very least they are helping me and also helping you. Lord, you should understand that if they did not appear, do you think the Tendo would let you come out like this? The Lord was silent. The Venerable Envoy then said, let me ask you another question. Lord, if you fight with the Tendo now, what are your chances of winning? Hearing this, the Lord slowly clenched his right hand. The Venerable Envoy handed the box to the Lord. The Lord looked at the Venerable Envoy. I can deal with Yi Xian, but the woman behind him, the Venerable Envoy suddenly said. We will deal with her. Don't worry. We will not let you deal with someone you cannot defeat. What you need to do now is to heal your injuries. As for what happens next, wait for my orders. The Lord nodded and took the box. Then, he turned around and disappeared. The Venerable Envoy remained silent for a moment, then disappeared as well. In the sky above Shaman City. After the Dark World experts retreated, Yi Xian looked at Shen Gong in front of him. As for the study room, he did not think about it for the time being. Because he had tried several ways to open it but to no avail. Not strong enough? Yi Xian really wanted to curse. Not strong enough to open it. Wasn't this toying with him? He really wanted to throw the study room away. This thing was really inviting trouble. In the distance, Shen Gong saw Yi Xian look over. He sneered. Yi Xian, do you think this matter will end like this? At this moment, a Mu appeared beside Yi Xian. Did you kill him? Yi Xian shook his head. He is useful. He knew nothing about the dark world and the righteous gods of the Tendo era. But this old man in front of him knew a lot. Here, many righteous gods had not appeared yet. Why should he not seize this opportunity? Thinking of this, the corners of Yi Xian's mouth lifted slightly. Seeing this scene, Shen Gong said fiercely, Yi Xian, what are you up to now? Old man, let me tell you, a scholar can be killed, but not humiliated. Old man. Yi Xian suddenly pressed his sword against Shen Gong's eyebrows. Do you want to die? As long as you say yes, I will use this sword to absorb you now. Shen Gong looked at Yi Xian. After a moment he said, I want to live. P.S. An ambulance came to the neighborhood next door. What a panic.